You all stand, please. Is Pastor Mike DeLong from the Vine Church here?
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome.
Let's pray. Father, we give thanks tonight. You are good. Your mercies endure forever, and we come gathered together as a community in need of your mercy. Father, tonight we pray especially for these board members who have found themselves in these important positions, accountability and influence in our community. Father, with all positions like these positions of influence and responsibility and power, they come with a propensity for pride and arrogance. And so, Father, we confess that before you tonight. We ask that this board rely upon your grace, your wisdom, that they'd receive discernment from you, and as they make decisions tonight and hear from the community, they would do so with that sense of humility in mind. We ask it in your name. Amen.
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 The Pledge of Allegiance will be done by St. Cloud High School Junior ROTC, by Joel Colazzo, Dana Rodriguez, Logan Owens, and Amanda Atwan.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the national anthem by Christian Quintone from Osceola School for the Arts. Please be seated. Darla Bungo, please, our mission statement.
The mission statement of the School District of Osceola County, Florida is education which inspires all to their highest potential.
Thank you. And Dalia Medina, please, translation services.
My name is Dalia Medina, here to provide translation services. Mi nombre es Dalia Medina. Estoy aquí para proveer servicio de traducción. Gracias.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of our students. Florida Statute 1001.371 requires the school board to reorganize by electing a chair and vice chair on the third Tuesday after the first Monday in November of each year. At the organization meeting, the district school superintendent shall act as a chair until the organization is completed. Additionally, Florida Statute Section 1010.07 requires school board members to be adequately bonded. Each board member is currently bonded as required by statute. The floor is now open for nominations for chairman of the school board of Osceola County.
I'll make a motion to nominate Kelvin Soto as chair of the Osceola County School Board.
I'll make a motion to nominate Tim Weisshire as chair of the Osceola County School Board.
We have to vote on
Yes.
one. Second's not required. You need to vote on the motion that's made, and if that fails,
So I would do first Mr. Soto.
yes.
The motion was made by Mr. Wheeler. Is there a second?
It's really required. It's not
Not
required.
required. Okay, so as chairman of the school board of Osceola County, and the other nominee I know is the other. Hearing no further nominations, the nominations are closed. So I will call for a vote for Mr. Soto. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay. Aye.
Thank you. The next motion was it Mr. Thacker? Oh, Mr. Booth? Mr. Booth, thank you. And all in favor of Mr. Weisshire?
Discussion.
Mr. Brown? Do we have a discussion at this
Yeah,
point?
Very brief, but not normal with the nomination, but it's, if the board wishes to have it, it would really be the pleasure of the majority of the board. Normally, you don't have discussion on a motion to nominate someone.
Well, in that case, then I think we should proceed.
What's the rest of the board? I'll be brief. It'll be very brief. I'm just going to share, Tim, I think you did a good job last year. I'm going to tell you one thing. I just want to be straight up with you. One thing I was disappointed in was when I brought to the board in August the homeless meeting in Houston. I thought you should have gone, or if you couldn't go, I thought you should have assigned someone to go. We got, with close to 5,000 homeless kids, I thought it was the only reason I didn't do it is because right before the election, it would have been wrong for me to presumptively say that I should be going. You two would be here.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler.
I'm almost done, Ms. Luciano. I just want to let you know I was very disappointed when you didn't go to that homeless meeting.
And just so you know, I did request to go, but the slots were full and I was not able to go.
Okay, that I didn't know. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now the nomination is open for Mr. Weisshire as our chairperson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. By board action, Mr. Weisshire was declared the chairman of the board. Congratulations, Tim. The floor is open for Osceola County Vice Chair.
Nominate Kelvin Soto.
Second.
Second.
I'm sorry, I'm not used to putting all this down here. Motion by Mr. Weisshire with a second from, who was the second from?
Everybody.
Everyone? Everyone. To nominate Kelvin Soto as the Vice President of the School Board of Osceola. Any further nominations? Hearing no further nominations, the nominations are closed. I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. By board action, Kelvin Soto was declared the Vice President of the Board. Congratulations, Mr. Soto. A tentative schedule of board meeting times and dates have been placed at your seat. This schedule adheres to the required regular meeting on the first Tuesday of the month with a special meeting on the third Tuesday of the month. Workshops may be added as requested by the board. Expulsion dates are noted on the day immediately following the board meeting at 1 p.m. I need a motion.
Motion to approve is submitted.
Second.
Discussion?
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I did.
Sir?
There's one date on here that I know just from a previously scheduled event that I couldn't be. It's the June 16th special meeting. I request that we change that to the following week if possible.
If you don't mind, we'll look at the schedule and then come back to the board.
I got one thing.
Yes, Mr. Wheeler?
Ricky, in fairness with that, I think one of the things we sometimes do when summer approaches, sometimes we even cancel a board meeting. So we'll see
Okay,
we'll see
that's
what's
fine.
coming up
Thank you,
in
Jim.
April and May. We'll figure that out.
Okay, the motion, the motion was made by Mr. Wheeler with a second by Mr. Soto to schedule the regular meetings on the first and third Tuesday of each month. A vote, please.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carried 5-0. Chairman, Mr. Weishauer, declared the time and dates for regular meetings set as the first and third Tuesday of each month. At this time, we will take a brief recess and we will reconvene momentarily. Which means I hand this over to you.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, board, we ready to go? Okay, we'll get started this time. The next item on our agenda has to do with designating FSBA legislative liaison and alternate. In order to encourage equal representation of all school boards in the Florida School Board's legislative effort, the Florida School Boards Association bylaws call for each school board to annually designate a school board member to serve as their legislative liaison. The floor is open for nominations at this time.
I got a question first.
Sir.
Discussion first. I'm just curious. I mean, you guys are new. I mean, I don't know if you guys have an appetite for this or not, et cetera. And I mean, I think you're able. The question is if you got the time and are interested.
I think this is a much better suited position for one of the three of you guys.
Thank you.
That's in my opinion, not Clarence's.
That's fine. Okay.
Is there a nomination? Currently, I'm serving as a legislative liaison. If we want to stay with that, fine. If we want to go a different direction, I'm
You want to do it?
fine with it.
Okay, sure.
That's the lead.
Okay. So there's a nomination for Tim
Second.
Weishauer. Thank you. Second by Mr. Wheeler. Motion's made by Mr. Thacker as the liaison. Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion does carry 5-0 for Tim Weishauer to serve as a legislative liaison. We do need to also designate an alternate at this time. I believe, Mr. Soto, you're serving as the alternate, are you
Correct,
not?
I'm going to nominate Mr. Jay Wheeler for that.
Okay. I don't believe it requires, it does require a second on this one, so I'll second that motion. Board, is there any discussion on Mr. Wheeler serving as a legislative alternate for the Florida School Board Association?
Yeah, briefly. Jay, you have a lot of great ideas. You're outspoken as to what you want to see in terms of policy coming up in Tallahassee. And so, besides just being an alternate, maybe you can also get a little bit involved and see what changes you can do that'll help us here.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Wheeler Mr. Soto, excuse me, to nominate Mr. Wheeler, a second by Mr. Weishauer. All those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion does carry 5-0. And so I will serve as liaison and Jay will serve as the alternate on that. Okay, board committee assignments, we need to look at that as well. I know that you've all received a list of what the committees are. If there's any in particular that you wish to serve on, I think it would be a great opportunity for you to speak up and let us know which ones they are. Board, if there's any that you're currently serving on that you'd like to step down on and provide an opportunity for somebody else, that would also be appropriate at this time.
I'm just curious, relative to, I don't know how the rest of the board feels. Do you want to bring this back, supply a list to Tim, what you're interested in, rank yourselves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, et cetera, and then at the next meeting we'll figure that. The only one that is, there's one that's etched in stone. Whoever's the chairman of the school board is automatically the chairman of the Four Corners Charter School Board. And then whoever represents District 1 is automatically on that board also. Now, Mr. Soto's been serving on that board. And Calvin, I'm not discouraging it, but I think that it would serve us well if one of you served on that board, because you're going to learn. You got to learn as much as you can about charter schools. I'm not trying to kick you off, but
Well, I would definitely agree. It's a very good experience. You learn things from that side of the education. industry. So I would encourage one of you to go ahead and take that opportunity. Wonderful folks to, to be with. Board meetings are always, Tim does a great job with those.
Great, thank you. I agree, and I think everyone's given a head nod that we'll bring this back for the next meeting. I don't think there's anything pressing between now and then that's going to mess that up at all anyway. And so if you'll just send information to myself and copy Pam Ravel on that, that would be helpful. Good. So, board, we'll move on. We're at a time of our meeting where we all enjoy exchanging positive comments. So, Mr. Wheeler, I'll start with you this evening.
I need to recognize some people who are actually in the room right now. I want to recognize the superintendent, Mr. Muniz, Ms. Bungo, and Mr. Phelps. And this time I'll also recognize something I've got on the agenda. I had an item on the agenda that I'm pulling. It was for a discipline issue, and it was something that we really needed to help a young lady, and staff really stepped up, found a solution, so it didn't have to come to the board. I appreciate the solution that you offered, and the families embraced it, and it's in the best interest of this student, and that's what we're all about. So I appreciate Mark, Darla, Tom, Melba. Thank you so much for doing what's right and working this out for this young lady, and good job, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Soto?
Yes. First thing is that I received my monthly newspaper of the Point from Poinciana High. Excellent publication. I can't say enough about it. It's so entertaining. And, when one of the things is we look on the screens and we see their education which inspires all to their highest potential. And we find the things that inspire us. And we should look out for them, not just wait for them to happen or to see them. And one of the things that I've been following for a long time is the Rosetta mission. Last Tuesday, it reached and was able to land on a comet. I think that I speak to it with students, about what an incredible accomplishment it is, and how it should inspire, our quest for knowledge, our quest for personal growth, of knowing more about ourselves, and what we can do to further explore, not just here, but in our universe. And I think that I wanted to share that inspirational moments, and that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. Normally I would go last, but I wanted to take this opportunity. My positive comments are for you gentlemen and you, Mr. Wheeler. It's good to have our board together tonight. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I genuinely believe with all my heart that we've got a strong, solid board that's going to move forward and make a positive difference for this community. And I just want to let all of you know, as well as the superintendent, I look forward to working with all of you guys as team members. So thank you. Mr. Thacker.
I'd just like to thank Ms. Luciano and her staff for opening the doors to me, getting me up to speed as much as possible, and taking all the time that you did to explain to me what you're doing, how you're doing it, introducing me to your staff, and really giving me an opportunity to come to this meeting somewhat prepared as opposed to kind of just stepping in and feet. So thank you very much. A lot of really interesting things, really great things going on with students in the district, and there's a lot to be proud of.
Thank you. Mr. Booth?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for being here tonight, and I'm excited to get to work here on the board. I'd like to again thank my wife and parents are here tonight, and Clarence stole my thunder, but I would like to thank Miss Luciano for working with me, getting me prepared for this meeting, and all the staff here that we have. Also want to mention one more thing. Last night they had a meeting I wasn't able to attend. Tim, I know you were. You might want to speak on it as well, but the Faith Bridge Foster Care Organization, and I believe it was held at the church of the gentleman that was here doing the invocation tonight. A wonderful organization if you want to get involved. I think there's about 150 kids that are still needing help, so the Faith Bridge Foster Care Program. Thank you.
I'll touch on it briefly. I serve as the chairman for Grace Landing, which is an organization that's established in Osceola County to help deal with foster care and provide a home for aged-out foster boys at this point, ultimately foster children in the long term. And yes, Divine Church hosted an event last night where Grace Landing unveiled, through a partnership with Faith Bridge, our landscape study on what the need really is in Central Florida. And it was great to have so many community leaders and church leaders coming together to try to make a positive difference in this arena. And Mr. Booth, I know you intended to be there, and I know what you're struggling with at home with the kids and illnesses, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Superintendent?
Just a couple of things. One of them is I wanted to thank both of you for coming to the office and asking all of those questions, because there's nothing better than coming to a meeting and feeling as if at least you've learned enough about it that you feel somewhat comfortable with it. So thank you for meeting with staff. The next thing is, this is really for everyone. We have a high five award, and that's where individuals just say something positive about another person in our district. We have 7,000 employees, and they're always doing something great. We choose 2 people on a monthly basis, and I will tell you it's the highlight of my day and the highlight of those individuals. So if there's anything positive you want to say about someone, please submit their names for a high five. And finally, we have a great partnership with Valencia College, and just last week there was a meeting with the counselors and career counselors, and there was just so much that we learned in order to help our children become better prepared to go to college. So I just wanted to say that partnerships are very, very important, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And you guys probably noticed that we have an outstanding student that joins us each meeting. Mr. Maxwell Frost is sitting over to my left, your right, and he's the president of the Student Government Association for Osceola County. He does have some representatives with him as well. Shelley Rowland, secretary, chief of staff. I'm trying to read the writing here, so excuse me. Is it Thasha?
Yes.
Okay. Dorismond, Vice President Kevin Rivera, and then the President, Mr. Maxwell Frost. I want to recognize them, and Mr. Frost invites you to share some words with us this evening as well.
All right, how's everyone doing today? Good, all right. Thank you, sir, for announcing that. So in June, we had our first meeting. We had all of 4 people in attendance. And I'll be honest, when I got up from that first meeting, I was a little bit discouraged, but the next meeting, it went from 4 to 6, and then it went from 6 to 8, and then it went from 8 to 10, and now we have 20 students that represent 7 of our 8 high schools here in Osceola County. We're hoping at our next meeting next Tuesday we'll have 100% representation. But the point of the countywide student government is for students to come together from all around the county and discuss ideas and concerns to really help to make Osceola County the best school district in the state, and one day the best district in the United States of America. So that's the purpose of the countywide student government. I'm going to announce everyone else to come out. That way they can stand here, and hopefully we can take a picture with our chairman and then superintendent. So we have Lance McNeil, Christian Rodriguez, Ariana Montrose, Shannon Oddfield, Hara Mendera, Brianna Sanchez, Brandon Remson, Ayana Fields, Nathaniel Michelle, Clarice Willis, Nostalgia Ways, Kevin Rivera, Thasha Dorsman, Chelsea Barukas, Sam Mendig, David Guzman. So these students, ladies and gentlemen, are some of the brightest students this county has to offer, and they come out of their day. They take time out of their lives and their day to come together and work together to make this county a lot better. So I'm really excited to work with them. An elder, his name was Hiller, he wrote that if I am not for myself, who is for me? If I'm only for myself, who am I? If not now, when? And if not me, who? And these students ask themselves these questions daily. And when the when comes up, they say now. And when the who comes up, they say me. And now it's us working together. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time, and I'd like to thank these students. So, thank you. You have the chairman.
We've done this a couple of times. Tall people, like you do. Up here, please. And everybody scoot up a little bit.
What would they do?
So taller people in the back, and then the shorter one in the front. And we've got to scoot in closer. Come on, come closer, because if not, they can't take a picture. Real close. Closer, like we know each other, like each other. It's okay. Yeah. That's it. There you go. Don't want to cover his face. There you go. Good, good. Get closer. Here we go. Oh, I'll come over. Yeah, I'll go right here. We're getting closer. A little closer, please. Mr. Soto? There we go. There we go. Kelvin, can you do the that's perfect. A little bit. There you go.
There you go. Oh, that's great. I just wanted to kiss. Let's take one more.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can tell you that all of those students speak as eloquently as Maxwell. They are amazing students. Just goes to prove that's just a few of the wonderful kids that we have in this district.
Thank you. At this time, we will go into presentations. We have a proclamation of School Psychology Awareness Week. Good evening.
Good evening, and I have to agree with Miss Luciano. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to follow that. I'll do my best. Can y'all hear me? Okay. Just for those of you who aren't sure of who school psychologists are, we actually have a few in the audience. School psychologists help students succeed academically, socially, behaviorally, and emotionally. They work together with educators, parents, and other professionals to create safe, healthy, and supportive learning environments. Together, connections between home, school, and the community for all students are strengthened. School psychologists are highly trained in both psychology and education. Their training, leading to state certification, emphasizes preparation in mental health and educational interventions. The district school psychologist celebrated School Psychology Awareness Week by distributing brochures and posters about the field of school psychology to teachers' lounges and to high school career centers. A display in the county office lobby window illustrated many of the unique attributes that school psychologists bring to a school and the district. The theme for this year's week was gratitude, and we are grateful that you have allowed us to take this recognition. We ask that the school board recognize the work of our 32 district school psychologists and their profession with the following district proclamation celebrating School Psychology Awareness Week last week, November 10th through the 14th. Whereas all children and youth can learn with the proper supports and have the unalienable right to an education that meets their needs. And whereas children's mental health is closely linked to their successful learning and development, and sound psychological principles are integral to instruction and learning, social and emotional development, prevention and early interventions, and supporting culturally diverse student populations. And whereas prevention is one of the most effective forms of intervention and is essential to minimizing negative outcomes, such as academic failure and dropping out, social and emotional difficulties, behavior problems, and school violence. And whereas schools must ensure safe, healthy learning environments for all children and be able to recognize and respond to their emotional and psychological needs in the face of personal and societal risks. And whereas collaboration among relevant adults at home, in school, and in the community is critical to effectively meeting children's needs and helping them achieve their best. Whereas school psychologists deliver mental health services and academic supports that are critical to achieving the goals of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and the Individuals with Disabilities Improvement Act. And whereas school psychologists are specially trained to facilitate collaboration and help parents and educators identify and reduce risk factors, create effective, caring schools, access needed community resources, and implement evidence-based prevention and intervention strategies. And whereas the School District of Osceola County, Florida, should recognize the important and vital role that school psychologists play in the personal and academic development of our county's children. Therefore, we, the school board of the School District of Osceola County, do hereby proclaim November 10th through the 14th, 2014, as School Psychology Awareness Week in Osceola County and commend observance to all of our citizens.
So moved.
Well, we do have a motion by Mr. Wheeler with a second by Mr. Thacker on the adoption of this proclamation. Is there any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion does carry. Thank you for your work, and thank you for bringing this to us this evening.
Thank you.
Do you want to recognize some of the staff that you did bring with you this evening so that we can see them tonight, Patty?
Yes, I think we've got a few people that are here.
If you would please stand so that we can just see you and also recognize you, and thank you for your work on behalf of the students of our district. Thank you. Appointments and transfers, Superintendent, there are none, correct? Thank you. Open for public comment. We will get started with that at this time. April, yours was on top, and so April Jackson, you know the routine. If you would please name and address for the record, and there'll be 3 minutes provided to each speaker.
April Jackson, 722 Mabette Street, Kissimmee, Florida. President of Osceola County Education Association. And we have quite a few teachers in the audience tonight. Would you stand, please? We're here because we have some concerns. First of all, I'd like to thank the district for working with us on some of these concerns. Recently, we passed guiding principles, which will now tell teachers how their lesson plans are to be prepared. Because some of us have been instructed at schools to write 15 and 16 pages of lesson plans each week. And those of you who have ever written a lesson plan know that that takes probably 3 or 4 hours to do. In addition to grading papers and all the other work that you must do to keep up with your class. But some of the things we don't recognize as time-saving, some of our schools are requiring teachers to do data binders on each of their students. Now, we give numerous tests, and Dr. Brizendine and I have talked about this, to try and gauge where the students are. And some of our schools are requiring the teachers to look at every question on the test and mark whether the children, high school students, 150, elementary, 18, 24, which questions on a 20-question test they have correct or incorrect, which takes a large amount of time because you also have to identify which Common Core standard, which is not called that in the state of Florida, but that's really what they are, the child has missed or gotten correct. The state has put so many requirements on our educators that we are losing quality teachers. Every meeting we have 5, 6, 10, 15 that are resigning. A lot of my colleagues, as you know, this is my 32nd year in the district. When they reach their retirement age or 30 years, they're bailing instead of staying. I taught with Dr. Elizabeth Powell at Neptune, and Martha reminded me she was in her 70s when she retired because she loved teaching. That's not happening anymore. So my request to you is that when we start lobbying the legislators, let's talk to them about the demands they've put on the classroom teachers, how our evaluations are based on tests that aren't necessarily valid, especially this year's test has not been normed. They have not developed the cut scores, but yet our evaluations will be based on that test that no one has ever administered in the state of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, April. Mr. Wheeler?
Yeah. April, I appreciate your comments about that. This past week, I actually sent Mrs. Luciano an email. I requested, and your staff provided it to me, a list of all of the tests that the state's requiring of all grade levels from last year and this year. And I'm looking at that. I'm gathering a little more data, but I've talked with some legislators about it already. And I think that I've heard that what you're saying is nothing new to me. I've been hearing this from teachers all year. Teachers, not just in Osceola County, friends of mine who are teachers in other counties just saying, I just can't take it. And these are great teachers who love teaching. So I'm looking at that, and I think that similar to what we had to do with some of the accountability, where the Department of Education just didn't get it. So we had to get legislative action. So legislators are open to it. They're hearing it. I'm becoming more knowledgeable with it. I got the list of tests from Mrs. Luciano's staff. I think it was either yesterday afternoon or early today. I don't remember. I looked through it. I emailed Janine back with some questions because I want some clarification on some of that. So I'm right there with you. You know, you guys, you work hard. I know you love kids. That's why you do it. You want to do what's best for kids. But at the same time, you know, you want to do things you believe in that aren't a waste of time. And we know that across the state, for instance, with end-of-course exams, you've got elementary music teachers who've got to cancel recitals and do things like that to administer a test that they don't believe in. So there's a lot of things that are being done and decisions being made by people, in my opinion, who really don't get in the classroom, I think, to a certain degree. The Department of Education in the past and still is abdicating the role to testing companies because the testing companies can make money on this stuff, and that's, you know, you follow the money. But there's nothing immoral about making money. The real issue is our kids shouldn't be cash cows. We need our kids to be learning, and we need teachers to be able to teach and do what's valid and right for their students. So this testing thing, we all need to get in up to our knees. Mrs. Luciano, you may want to forward the email you sent to me to all the board members so they can see what's required and ask your own questions as well. But you make a good point, and this is legitimate. This is something we need to tackle because it's affecting our professional employees, our kids, our parents across the lines. And, you know, I said it in the last meeting, I'll say it again. You know, all these tests, a pig doesn't get heavier by weighing it more often. So we really need to have a close look and start talking to our legislators about, you know, maybe we have to take legislative action saying you can only do this much in this environment. So I appreciate your input, April. I'll forward you the email I got also. Thank you so much, but I want to let you know that I'm right there with you on this.
Thank you. Superintendent?
Well, I just wanted to mention that I have been looking forward to this day so that we would have the new board members here and have a conversation really in regards to what April has brought up here. There are several mandates that I believe that we as a board need to discuss, which are those state assessments, our local assessments, the technology, and the teacher evaluations. And these are items that I want to bring to each and every one of you individually, and then bring a presentation, a full presentation or workshop to this board, because there are several mandates that, in my opinion, and I believe in the opinion of many of our teachers, are simply not fair. And we have to be educated so we can go to our legislators and explain to them why and why we believe there needs to be changes.
Great. And I think it would be something that we should have a workshop on. We're going to have a legislative initiative as well. We're going to have to sit down, so this would be a great topic for us to have there as well. Mr. Booth?
Ms. Jackson, you know, I'm right there with you, and I believe the lobbying and getting with our legislators, I know that's the best way to go about that. What can we do for you today? Are there things we can do, or is it strictly at the state level where we need to work the hardest?
Well, we're working with the district on taking some of the workload off, but we need the board to stand strong and united with the legislators so that they know that Osceola County Teachers Union, ESPs, superintendent, and the school board all believe the same thing: is the more and more mandates that you give us, the less quality education our children are getting.
When you spoke of the attrition, I mean, it's happened in my own family. You know, not when my wife's still working, my mother's still working, but I've seen it happen in my own family. They get in and they get out, and good, young, quality individuals. So I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Mr. Wheeler?
You know, I'll just share, you know, where I am with part of this already. I've been working with some board members in some other counties who've got the same concerns. I mean, this isn't, you know, this is a state issue, and relative to that, you know, I don't know what the exact right number is, but some of the stuff that we're kicking around now is, I think that everybody wants accountability. There's nobody who doesn't want accountability, but you want valid tests. And I think the end of course exams, you know, in elementary you want reading, math, and science at some levels, and in high school, you know, end of course for course specific biology, chemistry, etc. That makes sense. But at the beginning, you know, then on top of that, maybe one more mandated test, maybe two, but I mean, and that at the most, and which isn't to say that the district may not do more on its own. I'm not going to suggest a principal or a teacher or a superintendent won't come up with things they think is best for the district or best for that school, or for a teacher best for that classroom. But to have, you know, the state just shove it down our throats saying you got to do this battery of tests, and I really believe, nobody's proved me wrong, and I really believe it's the testing companies driving this ship. And, and you know, again, I want things that are right for kids, and just because someone's making money on it doesn't make it right for kids. So I think that, you know, we need to come up with a realistic number. The state, you know, it's the golden rule. He who's got the gold makes the rule, and they give us the money. So, you know, we got to live with some of the rules they give us. But I think that we can take back some of this. It will take legislative action, unfortunately. The Department of Education will not do it on its own. So I appreciate you bringing it to me, and I promise, if any of you want to get a hold of me, April's got my contact information. Please email me, call me, you know, anything that you think will be helpful, I appreciate it. And Mrs. Luciano, I think having a workshop about this is very good. And I think at that workshop, we may want to try to work the schedule out where maybe some legislators are invited and can't attend. If they're in committee, they can't do it, but I think some would take us up on the offer, for sure. Thank
And
you.
I think we're getting a head nod across from everybody that a workshop is what we want to do. We want to continue this dialogue, April. We want to hear from you on this as well. We want to work with the superintendent and her staff to not only understand it as best we can, but then also work to create the greatest impact that we can with it as well. Okay? At this time, I'll call for Amy Kuhl to please come forward. Good evening and welcome, Amy. If you would, please state your name and address for the record as well.
Amy Kuhl, 1223 Beth Lane, St. Cloud, Florida, 34772.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amy Kuhl, and I'm a math teacher at Liberty High School. I would like to speak about some of the additional requirements placed upon teachers which cause them to work long after the end of the school day. I teach 6 geometry classes as well as 1 intensive math class during my planning period in order for the school to comply with class size requirements. Currently, I spend on average at least 10 hours a week, 2 every night, preparing lessons to display on my smartboard. I also spend approximately 6 to 8 hours every weekend grading papers and entering those grades into the gradebook. This time clearly goes well beyond what is budgeted in a typical planning period. This time may sound excessive, which is why you must consider why these activities are taking so long. Our new curriculum, released in July, is more in-depth, and our end-of-course test this year is in April instead of in May. This means that teachers are expected to teach harder material faster than they did last year. Our old textbooks were taken away from us, and we were given a student workbook. I was told in one training class that our county was the only county that just purchased workbooks instead of the accompanying textbooks. The workbooks contained abstract problems and lack example problems contained in the textbooks. After requesting textbooks many times, geometry teachers were given 10 hard copies of the textbook for students to use. I received my 10 copies last week, and my students will obviously need to share 2 to 3 students per book. Since I did not have any textbooks throughout the first 3 months of school, I had to create everything from scratch to present the material. Since school has started, I was required to miss 3 days of school to go to all-day math solutions training. I dislike missing school when I could be teaching my students. The pacing calendar is already too fast to teach all the required information before the end of course test in April. The calendar has flaws such as the required number of days on the October pacing calendar is more than the actual number of instructional days in the school academic calendar. This places another burden on teachers to keep up with the pacing calendar when at the same time we are being taken out of the classroom to attend training classes. I prepare work for my students when I'm out, but my classes do not always have a substitute because the district does not have enough subs to go and classes just sit in the auditorium. When classes are not covered by anyone, teachers are asked to either take additional students into their rooms or cover classes during their planning or lunch periods. Some teachers have also been asked to write lesson plans to create presentations for other classes in which teacher position is vacant. When deans or assistant principals are away at trainings, teachers are asked to help out in the lunchroom and monitor students. We attend after-school parent conferences and make phone calls home as needed. We are asked to attend after-school activities to show support for our students. We schedule pre- and post-conferences for our evaluations and complete long surveys about our personal growth. In conjunction with everything else, these things add up to a lot of time. Please consider how hard teachers are working each day. My personal evaluation for the last 2 years has been highly effective due to the fact that my students perform well in their end-of-course tests. Yet as an annual contract teacher, I have no job security.
You're fine. You can finish your statement.
I have no job security that will be renewed from year to year.
Great. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wheeler?
To the teacher who just spoke, I'm sorry, I didn't get, I saw you were reading that. Do you have an electronic copy of that you can email to me? I would love to get a copy of that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Holly Katie, is that correct?
Excuse me.
Good evening and welcome to you as well.
First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. And I am one of those music teachers that at an elementary level, I teach on average each year 1,000 students. So as a special area teacher, I frequently have to use my own funding to put together materials in order to use in the classroom. And not only myself, but my husband helps manufacture those at home on his time as well. The current curriculum that I have in my classroom is actually copyrighted 2002. The board last year allowed or approved an electronic version for our new curriculum. However, not every school has the funding in order to purchase the curriculum, and my school happens to be one of those, so my curriculum is still 2002. So we're going, making everything up either as we go or going to conferences and workshops in order to get things done. Thanks to Debbie Famey and Mel Pace, things are on track as far as trying to put together the end of course exams. The problem is for PE, art, and music, how are we supposed to facilitate that for 1,000 students for each of the individual subjects? Lesson planning and grading for 1,000 students has to be done at home. We don't have time during planning when we are often pulled out for those invited meetings during planning time. Also, as the building rep for my school, I've had 2 teachers come up to me. One tells me she goes home every single day crying because of the stress level, and another actually broke down in front of her class in the hallway. She then ended up in the nurse's office and had high blood pressure, and they subsequently sent her home. So, ladies and gentlemen, the current evaluation system, coupled with the testing and the high-stakes stress levels, must be addressed. Our students, first of all, we need time to teach, and our students need time to learn.
Thank you.
So, thank you for your attention.
And if you would, I didn't want to cut you off mid-sentence. If you would just state your name and address for the record as well. I failed to do that.
Pardon me, I forgot that.
No problem.
My name is Holly Cady, 947 Whistler Court, St. Cloud, Florida, and the music teacher at Flora Ridge Elementary.
Thank you very much, and thanks for coming this evening. Share your feedback.
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara M. Is it Mundinger?
Mundinger.
Mundinger.
And I'm not coming forward with a speech because I wouldn't have time to write one. My name is Barbara Mundinger. I've been teaching for more than 30 years. My address is 2401 Lakeshore Boulevard, St. Cloud, Florida, and I teach at Parton Settlement Elementary. I teach first grade science, social studies, and math, and I'm very thankful that I don't have to teach reading and writing because I don't know how to prepare for it. I have always worked a long time any place that I've taught, but this year I work much more and I can't keep up. I will have to work a couple of days at least during the break or I won't get all the paperwork done that needs to be done. I am at school early. I can't get away. It's hard to get away before 5 o'clock. I put in 5 hours at least on a Saturday and a Sunday. There just isn't enough time. I have the best job in the world. I used to love it. The job that I feel I have is making relationships with children so that I can find the best way to guide them in their learning. But I don't feel that I have the adequate time, and I'm stressed. So really getting to talk with these children and get to know them and find out what will click with them is becoming more and more and more difficult. And I don't know where all the mandates come from, but this year there has just been so much. I one day talked to 2 other teachers who had done the same thing I had done the night before, is just cry, and I am not a crier. I want to help the children. That's why at 65 I'm still teaching. But I can't continue to work at this level. I don't have that energy anymore. I thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. I think that some others have spoken better than I, but maybe I have the emotional side of it. I love the kids, and I can't do the best for them if I have so much data. And I can put in easily 4 hours on each lesson plan using, we have so many wonderful resources now, but you haven't got time to look at them. The first time I looked at all the STAR data, I spent several hours on them. And I guess, am I out of time?
No, ma'am, you're fine.
Okay, I did see this thing blinking and I don't know what it means. Maybe I wanted to be out of time. We have so many resources, we don't have time to look at them. I looked at all those wonderful reports, but I really need time to study them. And I did send home the parent report. I think that's great for the math. But we need to have more time for the kids. That's what this is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Carol Miller and Jennifer Kessler. The dynamic duo, I assume, right? Good evening and welcome to both of you ladies. If you would also please state your name and addresses for the record.
My name's Carol Miller, and it's 3606 Yellowbird Court, St. Cloud, Florida.
My name is Jennifer Kessler, and I live at 2321 Giselle Court, St. Cloud, Florida.
Thank you.
And we both teach at Michigan Avenue. Kindergarten and second.
I just have to say I ditto everything that's already been said. And I also want to begin by saying that somebody here, I can't remember which one of you said, referred to education as being an industry, and it's not an industry. That's where we've gone wrong in our thinking. We're dealing with human beings, not products. Forgive me for making a list, but I put this list up about, I don't know, several years ago and then added to it. But I'm just going to list off a lot of things that we're responsible for. Lesson plans, translation of all papers going home for ESOL students, monthly parent contact log, grades, student information, phone list, birthdays, fire drill reports, attendance, daily schedule, lunch block duty, code of conduct, photo, video consent forms, disciplinary referrals, first aid room reports, data binders. We have to read our emails 3 times a day, pass out flyers from the community, teacher input form for IEP reviews, parent conferences, phone calls, tardy slips, how children get home, after school assistance form, OASIS registration if we have it, follow curriculum maps, positive recognition referrals, field trip forms, student accident reports, cumulative folders, phone lists for building and home emergency, report cards, progress reports, emergency lesson plans, grading papers, behavior plan, letters to parents, students' agendas, in-services, reading coach, professional development needs survey, character counts, documentation, emergency action guide, receipts for monies collected forms, list of visiting parents for 5-star school activities. We need to adjust to changes in scheduling, new ways to put in our time off.
Not to mention all the new programs that we had to learn this year, like CPOMS, Focus, how to redo our leave time on the portal, many meetings during our planning, so we can't do our work during school. You know, it's just, I'm one of those teachers that I'm counting my days because I'm ready to retire. I don't need this stress. I'm only 51 years old, but I'm ready to go find another career because I can't deal with this stress anymore.
The teachers are, there's just growing resignation, frustration, depression, and anxiety. I have a lot of friends who are going to doctors for heightened health issues, high blood pressure, and that kind of thing, not to mention that we've lost 3 very dear friends at our school for cancer in the last few years.
In the last year.
Yeah. The morale is at an all-time low, and it's just, and I didn't even mention like about 20 other things on my list, so, but
Great.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, ladies. We appreciate you coming this evening. Larry Allen. Good evening, Larry, and welcome as well.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. You know the routine.
Okay, I'm Larry Allen, and my address is 618 Robin Lane, Kissimmee, Florida, 34759.
Thank you.
Currently, I'm a 7th grade dean. I think this is my 3rd year, so I'm not too far removed from the classroom. And a couple years back, I was thinking an average teacher, maybe even a little bit below average teacher, spends at least an extra hour a day. At least an extra hour a day. That's 180 days, not counting pre and post planning. So you take 180 divided by a 7.5 hour day. That's 24 days. What other profession do you know of where the people that are in the trenches on the front line that are bashed in the public about what they do, even though they're giving their whole heart to it, what other profession do you know that will give an extra month for free? Good luck with that. So anyway, I just wanted the board to be aware of all the stress that's going on at my school too. And the T-shirt that our president came up with probably says it all for best results. Just let me teach. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I just was saving my comment until to the end here, and that is that I hear it from teachers, Larry, all of you that are here, and one of the common themes is that going beyond the times is something that they're all willing to do. They really love what they're doing. It's a calling, but to do it because of mandated testing that is contributing very little and in many cases impeding the educational process, hurting the job satisfaction, the experience for some of the young, newer teachers, and taking away the joy from the more experienced one. It's really what is causing a lot of dissatisfaction. And I tell you, my greatest moments, I had several careers, but I taught for a brief moment, and I taught at freshmen, which are really just high schoolers with an extra year of age. But I tell you that it's a wonderful experience. I had a great experience because I didn't have to be, I taught at a university. I didn't have the constraint. I cannot imagine going through the experience that you're going through. I mean, if there was a way that I can test it out so I could see, but I don't have to. I think that you've all very eloquently has stated it. And it's not deaf upon, at least not my ears. I really do hope that we can somehow inspire those legislatures that can make some changes happen that will benefit you and our students and our parents to go ahead and say, look, there's other priorities that we have, and that is that we got to get back to teaching and letting you do what you know how to do best.
Thank you, sir. Linda Brown. Oh, you are? No.
I'm going to show off the t-shirt.
Good evening, Lyndon. If you would also please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Linda Brown. I live at 3830 Opal Circle, St. Cloud, Florida, 34772.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I started teaching 4 years ago at Discovery Intermediate School. This is my 4th year, actually. This year should have felt smooth. I'd already taught for 3 years. I was comfortable teaching, actually very comfortable teaching. I spent 3 years creating my own curriculum, right? I could do this no problem. I started school thrilled they were going to give me the new Holt textbooks. I was excited until they came. We were told you have to follow the pacing guide, which I was okay with doing, but limited in what I could do because I had to give some of my books to the reading club teacher. I should have prefaced this by saying I'm a 7th grade language arts teacher, I'm an 8th grade reading teacher, and I teach journalism. I do the yearbook through journalism. But with all the changes that have taken place, I'm as stressed as I was my first year of teaching. Almost daily, I'm forced to take work home with me because I cannot fit it into my daily work schedule. I am forced to attend meetings at least twice a week during my planning period and after school that can often be communicated through a simple email. Sorry. In addition, I get to work nearly 2 hours early every day. I know that is technically my choice, but I wouldn't be able to do my work if I didn't. I stay late every day. I just finished coaching soccer. I'm now coaching volleyball. I will be, and I voluntarily stay after on Thursday and Friday for tutoring for my kids, and I stay as late as the custodian will let me stay. And it's simple because my kids out in Point Siena need the extra time to get their work done. In addition, there are more restrictions on helping my students get the services they need to help them make progress and feel successes to their own education. I have a student that I know is dyslexic. Their mother knows dyslexic. I've asked someone to do something about it. I've been told there's nothing they can do about it. I'm frustrated. Therefore, I am having to search for creative ways to reach the needs of all of my students, this student in particular. On top of lesson planning meetings and teaching, I'm doing conferences after school, activities of course on a volunteer basis, some of which I'm actually paid for. But I'm also planning field trips, of which we just got back from. I'm controlling discipline in my classroom because I was testing today thanks to Right Score. I sent a student out yesterday because she was irritating everyone else and was told that I had to let her stay in there because I had to figure it out myself. It is very time consuming and draining on me. I am happily healthy. 3 of my coworkers, however, have been in the hospital. 1 underwent open heart surgery. I feel underappreciated and overworked. My health insurance has also gotten higher. Please consider how much we do to prepare our students for the future.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Linda. Shirley? Good evening, Shirley. Welcome. And if you would please state your name and address for the record.
Shirley Groff, 998 Cherokee Drive, Kissimmee, Florida. I'm an ESE paraprofessional at Thacker Avenue Elementary for National Studies. I'm also the ESP Vice President for OCA. This evening, I just want to bring up again about having all the pairs after subbing for the teachers. It's different types, like ESE, we're having them pulled to sub for a regular ed class. That makes a strain on the ASD classes or EBD classes, them not being helped, the pairs helping the teacher to cover that class, whether it be disciplinary, problems or whatever. And then there's all the other pairs, they're on, especially at my school, they're pulled 2 to 3 days a week subbing for a teacher that's maybe out or at a workshop or whatever because there's not enough subs. But that keeps them from doing the testing that they need to do. So what am I asking tonight is trying to get us where we're not pulled to be for the teachers and trying to do our job, what we need to do to teach our children. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Torres? Good evening, Doctor, and welcome to you as well. If you'd please state your name and address for the record, and we welcome you here this evening.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Dr. Joseph Torres. I'm a family physician here in town for approximately 21 years. I've been past Chief of Staff of Osceola Regional Medical Center, past Chief of Staff of Florida Hospital Kissimmee. The reason I'm here tonight is at the request of some of my patients because of changes that have taken place with the health care delivery for you, the teachers, and the employees of Osceola County School Board. They've asked me to come here and basically describe what we do. We, aside from being family physicians, we have an MSO. What an MSO is a management service organization, and that is actually spread across Osceola County. We have physicians that we work with, and we manage risk. We manage risk and emphasize on prevention and wellness. Right now, at this time, we have approximately 10,000 covered lives under Medicare. And my proposal was to come here tonight and to present to you an option that you may want to consider. We can take this MSO strategy to the school board and to the employees right now. What that means is that we will offer opportunities, for example, to get care after hours, get extended office visits, have doctors that you're already seeing, because with these changes, you've had to change your doctors, change your plans, higher co-pays. So it's been a big detriment for our patients that we've been seeing for 20 some odd years. So it was brought to me the opportunity to be here tonight and to say this is an option that you have on the table in your own backyard, that we can deliver a healthcare system to the community that we can go as far as even putting pharmacy systems in the schools, so where you won't have to miss that much work. You'll be able to access a physician at a time when you're able to, not at a time when we're open. It's difficult to go see us from 8 to 5. And with everything I've been hearing tonight, their schedule extends further than 8 to 5. So we have right now that system in place already for Medicare patients, but we're also willing to extend it to a commercial type population, and that would include the teachers and employees of Osceola County.
Great. Thank you, Doctor. And Dr. Torres, just state your address for the record. We didn't get that at the beginning.
309 West Bass Street.
Great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming to share that with us this evening. Okay, we have concluded this portion. I do want to let you know that the board did all agree that we would get together and workshop on this. We appreciate you coming out this evening to express your concerns and your viewpoints. I can't speak for the board, but I believe that everyone heard your concerns loud and clear and are committed to working together to try to find solutions that we can work with April and others throughout the organization, as well as the superintendent and her staff, to try to figure out what the solutions are, what the impediments are, and then what the angle or approach we need to take to try to work through some of this, make sure we can get quality education in our classrooms all day, every day for our students. So I want to thank you for coming tonight to share that with us. Okay. I got one clap. That's good. I wasn't looking for it. Not needed. Board, we are at the time for our agenda modifications. Mr. Wheeler, I'll start with you.
I am taking under old business the disciplinary hearing off of the agenda. I'll do it officially here. And then I've added several things on the agenda, and that's all I've done.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Soto is good. Mr. Brown, I believe you were pulling as well.
Yes, I'm going to pull out the attorney's report 15R, the status of the prosecution matter. That will come back to the next board meeting, presumably give us a chance to get more information from the board members.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Thacker, any modifications? No. Mr. Booth? No. Okay, and Superintendent?
I'd like to pull, please, 14Q. We still have not received notification from the Department of Education. And also 12P as in Paul.
Okay. Is that all?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, Board, just to kind of recap that, and I don't have any modifications. If you look on the third page of your agenda, they're all there. Superintendent's pulled under Facilities, letter P. Under Superintendent's Recommendation, letter Q. Mr. Brown is pulled under Attorney's Report, letter R. Mr. Wheeler, under Old Business, has pulled the Discipline Hearing. So, Board, if there's no other modifications, I'd look for a motion to approve at this time.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Thacker with a second by Mr. Wheeler. Board, is there any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion does carry 5-0. And Board, that will bring us down to our information items. I believe under our monthly business advisory board, there is information in your packet. If you had any other questions, Board, we can address them to Mr. Cease at this time. If not, I assume that that information is satisfactory for you. Yes. Good. Okay. So, Mr. Cease, I'll come to you and Mr. DeBoard then for an update on the health insurance initiatives that you're undertaking on our behalf.
Good evening, Board. Staff is bringing forth an update on our self-insurance program. And the purpose of this update is to inform you on surrounding issues with the district's health insurance plan and also to address some misconceptions. Actually, I'm going to ask Ken if he could walk us through the presentation.
Good evening, board members, and this is Luciano.
Good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity to share with you some of the things that we're working on in the risk management and benefits area. I'd like to start off this presentation by walking you through an actual claim that's going through our self-insurance program with our new Wellness Local Plus program. We're going to be using Mary as a school district employee. She's enrolled in the free Wellness Local Plus plan like 80% of our employee population, and controlling her diabetes with the help of her primary care physician. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Whenever she goes to the primary care physician with the new program, she has a copay of $30. She pays that directly to the primary care physician. The doctor then, in turn, sends a bill to Cigna, the third-party administrator, for the balance of $96. The total cost of that office visit, $126. That $96 is basically a pass-through, is paid by the school board back through Cigna, going back to the primary care physician. As a result also of that office visit, she received a prescription from her primary care physician. It's a generic prescription for a generic drug. With the new plan, the Wellness Local Plus plan, when we use generics, or when our members use generic drugs, we waive the pharmacy deductible, and we have a $15 off copay for that pharmaceutical. The total cost of that pharmacy for that prescription is $32. The member paid the $15 copay. Pharmacy bills Cigna again for the $17 balance, and again the pass-through goes from the district through Cigna back to the pharmacy for the balance of $17. As we look at the 2013-14 plan, comparing that to the 2014-15 changes, there's a misconception that employees can't afford to go to the doctor anymore. If we assume that Mary's going to have 2 office visits per year and 12 monthly prescriptions, when we compare the 2013-14 to the 2014-15, Mary's actually paying $25.60 less out of her pocket with the new Wellness Local Plus plan. We've removed an obstacle that has been considered an obstacle by a lot or several people or a lot of people, that $100 deductible that we used to have under the 13-14 plan. You had to meet a $100 deductible, and then the plan paid 30%. So we removed that obstacle. We brought back copays, which was a request that the district insurance committee heard quite frequently. The advantage of a copay is when the employee goes in for their office visit, they know what their responsibility is. They're not trying to remember, did I meet my $100 deductible? Do I still have a balance of that deductible? And the percentage was always a confusing issue as well, whether they were 30% of what. So returning to the copays has been like I said, a response to requests from a lot of our employees. Average cost of services for SDOC. This slide highlights the increases in the cost of these services, the different services, inpatient, emergency room specialist, and primary care, year over year for the past 3 years. These increases are a direct result of the increases being passed through the district's insurance plan by the doctors in the hospitals. They're basically just, the charges, the services they're rendering are the same, but the charges are increasing. SDOC average annual claims cost. This slide tells a very important story. If you refer to, or I'll refer you to the bottom right-hand corner where it lists the board contribution. Right now the board contribution is $6,108. That's on an annual basis paid for every benefited employee in the district. Our average employee cost is $5,653. That leaves a surplus of $455 in our trust fund. By contract, we're required to offer spousal coverage. Whenever we add the average cost of a spouse to that deficit, or I'm sorry, that surplus of $455, it actually turns into a deficit of $8,452. This deficit has to be paid and is covered by the reserves that we have in our loss fund. This past June 30th of 2014, we actually used $3.2 million of our fund balance as part of it, the deficit, covering the deficit, excuse me. During this 3-year period, the board contribution did not change, dependent premiums did not change, and the plan designs did not change during that period. So what are we currently doing to curtail costs? Did you know that we currently have over 20 wellness initiatives that are the result of a partnership between Cigna, Gallagher, and the district's wellness staff to identify the health needs of our employees and provide targeted education. This year we're expanding that to include spouses and create awareness and provide education by requiring the spouse to participate in wellness screenings or to provide proof that they've visited a primary care physician in order to be enrolled in one of our wellness plans. And in an effort to continue to promote use of generic drugs, again, like I mentioned earlier, we're waiving the deductible for the pharmacy deductible. And we know that for every 1% change or reduction in the use of brand name drugs, when we move 1% from brand name usage to generic usage, that generates a savings of $263,000 to the plan. So obviously our educational program is important, and that our goal is to identify disease states early as possible, by having the members engaged with their primary care physician and avoiding the higher cost areas of emergency room visits and hospital stays. Another initiative that we're starting enrolling our over 65 retirees today is a new Medicare Surround medical and pharmacy option. This option will potentially save our over 65 retirees as much as $1,200 a year, and it reduces the district's unfunded other, or it could reduce the district's other post-employment benefits liability, which is currently at $48 million. This is a win for all stakeholders. As we move forward, we know that 56% of our employees have a relationship with a primary care physician. That means 44% of our employees do not have a relationship with a primary care physician. As highlighted previously in a previous slide, we want to engage our members as early as possible at the lower cost to improve their own health and to prevent the costly health claims in the future. Through discussions and visits to other employers, both public and private, we're excited about the successes we are hearing about with the use of health and wellness clinics. And we are continuing our investigation and data collection as a possible option for implementation with our members. How will we get there? A benefits consultant provides sound legal advice, certifies the actuarial soundness of the plan, understands the brokerage process in the marketplace in order to achieve the best results for the client, has the talent and knowledge to navigate the Department of Health, Internal Revenue Service, Health and Human Services, and their applicable enforcement agencies, and to be an advocate for our members when needed. Our current benefit consultant has a proven track record of providing savings to the district. They have generated an annual average savings of $1.38 million a year. That's incredible. Most recently, as a result of performance guarantees that Gallagher negotiated into our 2012 contract with Cigna, the district received a check for $292,000 because Cigna missed the guaranteed discount amount by 0.1%. A carrier paying on a guarantee like this is virtually unheard of. We have areas, our district has exposure for non-compliance. One of the areas is Affordable Care Act. In 2015, there's a potential for $13.2 million exposure if we are not in compliance with the Affordable Care Act. That $13.2 million is $2,000 per covered employee, or 6,600 employees. Times 2,000 is the $13.2 million. And another area is under the Internal Revenue Service, Section 125, forfeit tax-free status of current pre-tax benefits. If we don't keep our plan in compliance with the Section 125, we can lose the ability to offer our premiums on a pre-tax basis, which impacts both the tax responsibility of our employees, but also the tax responsibility and liability of the school district. With Gallagher as our consultant, we have transferred that liability for our non-compliance to them. Just to recap, medical claims expense is a direct pass-through from the services performed and billed by the providers, the doctors and hospitals. The billed charges for providers continue to increase annually. Spouse health expenses are significantly higher than the employees, resulting in use of our reserves. The district has outperformed the market by $5.89 million over 3 years. This was accomplished through extensive education, wellness, and contract design. We're continuing to evaluate employer-sponsored health clinics for our district employees. And this benefits consultant has achieved savings for the district while helping to mitigate risk. As I mentioned earlier, there's an annual savings of $1.38 million, even with the fee that you're going to be asked to vote on later in this meeting of approximately $200,000. That's still a savings to the district of $1.18 million. Our benefit consultant is definitely our partner.
Thank you. Anything further on the presentation?
No, sir.
Okay, so board, we'll bring it back to you for discussion. Mr. Willie, your light's on.
Can you go back to the page with $3.2 million in penalties?
13.2 million?
Right there.
Yes, sir.
So they're making sure that we're not penalized. Let me ask a question. You're in charge of the benefits for the district. Why can't you make sure we're not penalized? Why do you need somebody else to make sure that we're in compliance?
Well, that's just one of the areas. That's
what you highlighted that. So the question again goes, we got, this is what you do. Benefits is what you do. We got 7,000 employees. Why do we need a consultant to make sure that we don't get penalized? Why can't you make sure of that?
Well, let me answer that, Jay.
Sure.
Actually, it's no different than why we use an attorney to mitigate our exposure to anything. They're looking out for us from a legal perspective to make sure that we are following our and we are doing our due diligence to make sure that we are compliant. Of course, staff does a great job in making sure, but they sit over that and they review the stuff that we're going to send out to our members, and they make sure that we're compliant and we're covering all these areas. It's no different than having an attorney sitting over and reviewing everything.
That's a good point, but we don't have an attorney on staff at the school district. We got a benefits expert on staff at the school district, so I need another layer on top. If I had an attorney on staff at the school district, that's an excellent point, but I don't.
Well, well, I can use several different examples. Let me bring it up another one. Financial advisor. Why do we use a financial advisor? Why is it even needed? They actually sit between us and the investment company as far as when we're restructuring debt. They look to make sure, and they look over and the whole project to make sure that everyone's doing their part to make sure that there's no exposure to the DIS, because now the liability doesn't sit on the district, it sits with the financial advisor.
Okay, but we're borrowing money. We're dealing with commercial markets. I appreciate the analogy. I don't necessarily buy it. The next question I've got, you showed this. So what do we tell the employees that, number one, don't want the Local Plus plan? That's number one. Or number two, have the Local Plus plan and they can't afford to put their sons and daughters on it? They can't afford to put their spouses on it? I mean, I realize what you're showing me here is what we have, and you're painting a very good picture. God bless you for that. And it's a much better presentation than you gave last time when you brought that up. I'll give you that. But in this instance, correct me if I'm wrong. The last time when this came up, the fee you were asking us to pay was to a company that told us that we're losing money, but we're not losing money as quickly as we can because our expenses have gone up 22.6% while our revenues have gone up 7.6% over 3 years. Am I accurate with that?
Well, we have a problem with healthcare costs, and I'm going to take it back a little.
So why do I need someone to tell me how to lose money?
They're not telling you how to lose money. Actually, what they're doing for you is saving you money.
Then how come I've got employees, teachers, bus drivers? They can't afford to put their spouses on it. They can't afford to put their kids. I got teachers who can't afford to put their kids on it.
Well,
And you're telling me that I need to pay.
There was no change for, the plan design changed to add a child.
The fees aren't higher?
To add a child? No, they're not.
So to add fees?
For one of the plans, it's not. It's the same as it was last year. The only thing that changed was the spouse plan. And I would like to I want to go back to a slide, okay?
Sure.
I want to share this with the board. And I shared this before in the past, and this is creating a lot of exposure for the district. Our members, our employees of the district, it's only costing $5,653 on average to pay for their Medicare medical cost. But now you add a spouse plan onto that. The spouses are not taking, well, I don't want to say that, it's an opinion, but the spouse plan is costing this district a lot more, and we're subsidizing it. So why shouldn't we pass on some of the cost, more of the cost, to the spouse plan? The district can't absorb this. We're bankrupting the health and risk benefit plan because we can't afford these type of costs.
So so it really comes down to, we've got a plan that we can't afford, but it's the best thing out there. I understand that. And so, again, I mean, so if I hire the consultant, what do I need internal people for?
It's not that easy. Why do you need business and finance sitting upstairs? Why do you have auditors sitting in here that come in here? Why do you need a board attorney?
I don't have an in-house attorney.
You have a board attorney?
Right, I don't have an in-house attorney.
He's consulting you on decisions you're making on this board. It's no different than what they're doing for us and mitigating us and are brokering deals on our behalf. And like Ken just shared with you.
Brokering deals we can't afford.
Actually, no. The last contract that went out, and it was a performance-based contract we signed with Cigna. And with that contract, Gallagher Benefits, our consultant, actually put into the contract on our behalf, because they negotiated this, saying we'll only agree to this if you sign this performance-based. You have to meet this measure. I can't disclose what that is. But they missed it by a fraction, by 0.1%. So it required Cigna now to pay the school district because they didn't meet that performance measure.
So what's the out-of-pocket maximum deductible for employees under the plans we have?
What's the max out of pocket?
Yeah, deductibles on an annualized basis.
Depends on the plan you're in.
Well, give me the range.
Okay. The local plus is a deductible of $500. The wellness local plus has a deductible of $350, and then the buy-up wellness open access plus has in-network 500, out-of-network 1,000.
It's the total maximum annual out-of-pocket?
No, you said deductible.
Excuse me?
I thought you said deductible.
You said deductible.
The max out-of-pocket.
Max out-of-pocket.
Max out-of-pocket under local
I'm
plus
sorry,
is
I phrased it.
$6,300.
$6,300?
Yes, sir. Wellness local plus is $4,700, and the open access plus is $5,000, in-network $10,000 out.
So I got an employee, a bus driver, making $20,000 a year. How are they supposed to afford a $5,000 out-of-pocket?
Well, as I mentioned, you know, if they're going to the doctor, to the primary care physician, they don't have to meet that deductible. They go straight to a copay. If they're in the free wellness local plus plan.
Well, God help them if they got to go to a specialist or the emergency room.
Well, the specialist is also a copay, $35. 30 for the primary care, $35 for the specialist.
So if they have cancer, they need
if
chemo, they have
if
heart
they have
attacks, they have
additional-
strokes,
Right.
then God help them. I appreciate what you're sharing with me. I'm still trying to figure out why you can't do it, or why if you need them, why I need you. I mean, and no offense, I think you're a good guy, but I'm just trying to use the lawyer as an example. I don't have an in-house attorney. If I had an in-house attorney, you're right, I probably wouldn't need a legal counsel. Okay, I think that what you're showing me, you made a much better case than you did last time, but we still have something that we need to invent something that doesn't exist. What we've got is what the market has out there, and what the market has out there, It's just, you know, if they play by all the rules, it might work, but you got people who've got real lives with real families, with real things that happen, they can't afford it.
Can we, can you go over to the clinics that we're looking at, please, to that slide? I'm sorry. Yeah, the clinics.
Just after that. It's 8, number 8.
Can you share a little more on this, please? Since there have been so many meetings and so many people that we've met with already.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. As I mentioned, we have met with public employers and private employers. We've spent quite a bit of time with Polk schools. They have a clinic. They started with one clinic, and they're about to open a second clinic, or break ground in January on a second clinic. But I think the impact that they're having on their employee population as a whole is very, very positive. The services that they're able to provide, just the well-being of their employees and the positive response that their employees are having to the clinic are just remarkable. They were sharing with us that they have employees that are actually living in Hillsborough County and in Orange County, and their clinic is in Haines City, and they have employees that drive from those locations to participate in the clinic in Haines City. So it's very popular. They're already calling their risk management office, asking when the new clinic's going to be open, when can they make an appointment. So we're seeing, like, that's what I was referring to, the positive outcomes that some of these other school districts. We've also visited Lake schools.
Did they use Gallagher to open those clinics?
No, sir.
So they didn't spend $200,000? Okay, just check. Thank you.
They have consulting services, but it wasn't Gallagher, no.
Okay. Mr. Thacker.
Can you go back to the slide you had up just a second ago?
This one?
Yes. The 8,400 deficit that you have there, just tell me, I'm trying to understand that. Is that after the employee makes the contributions for their spouse?
No, that would be about $4,000.
So that $4,000 deficit in reality is really $4,400 or something?
No, $4,000, because the premium's about $4,000, so that would leave another $4,400.
Okay,
right?
I got it.
Yeah.
Now my next question is, I just don't understand that. If our average cost for an employee is $5,600, what is driving an employee's spouse to be twice as much, or 1.5 times as much? What is why are they so much more expensive?
The level of services that they're requiring and the types of treatment that they're receiving are.
All right, so this is based on a track record of sorts.
Yes. Well, I mean, these are based on our actual, what we're spending for those folks.
Okay.
From our plan, yes.
All right, something to me just doesn't feel right there. I mean, I've talked to some individual people who just have individual plans that are far cheaper. They've got different issues with plans. But have we looked at, I don't know, way out, just having people look and see if they can find their own stuff way cheaper and supplementing that? This just really blows my mind that it's this high. And I don't know how a bus driver who works 25 hours a week, they don't have a chance to pay insurance for their family. So it's a huge problem. I'm not blaming it all on Gallagher. I mean, I disagree with Mr. Wheeler a little bit. They're expensive, but there's some things. I mean, we're not going to have an actuary on staff, I don't think. If we do, I don't know what they're going to do 8 months out of the year. We're not going to have. There's several specialized things they do that are not full-time jobs. You want to pull from a pool of people. So I get all that. Whether it should be 200 or 150 or so, I don't defer to you on that. But I think we've got to find, and if Gallagher can't help us find another solution, maybe they're not the right partner, I don't know. But there's got to be some other ways in here
I mean, that's just, on average, that just doesn't seem, it seems interesting to me that our spouses are 40% more unhealthy than our employees.
Yeah, can I actually address that? One of the things, that's why there was a plan design change this year to incorporate the spouses into the plan as far as the wellness check once a year. The plan in the past didn't have that. So in order for the employee to be on the free plan now, and they want to bring a spouse onto the plan, they also have to, the spouse has to subject themselves to an annual physical, which was a requirement for both to go on this plan. It's about education. And that's the key thing that we're doing here right now, as far as to educate not only our employees, but also the spouses. Because that's one of the things that Ken shared with you, 44% of our people don't have a regular physician, and that don't have that relationship.
I've seen it somewhere in some of the other stuff we've talked about. What percentage of our employees have a spouse on the plan, roughly? Do you remember?
I don't off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
I saw that in some of the stuff we've been through. Okay.
But I think that upside down triangle that is on one of the slides, you know, and I mentioned it a couple of times, that we really need to, and part of the education that Todd was referring to, is we've got to get our people engaged at the lower levels when it's less expensive than the first time they go to the doctor is that emergency room visit, or that, heaven forbid, that time that they're admitted to the hospital, you know, with something really majorly wrong. So, you know, it's part of the education process. And that's where the clinics have been successful in, especially with those people that we're talking about, those employee groups. They are being very successful, having large success with those groups of their employees. And their situation is not unlike our situation, where, you know, 56% are seeing a primary care, but 44% are not seeing a primary care physician. So, you know, they are attracting that 44% that hasn't seen a doctor in 10, 12 years, and they're actually having an impact on those people's lives through their employee wellness, health and wellness clinics. So, I mean, that's definitely
Well, I don't know what's happened, but the experienced board members have all just washed their hands with this stuff. I don't know what you've talked about that scared them all, but Ricky and I are clearly not smart enough to get it.
Pass it down.
I'm afraid of it now.
That's the good one.
Mr. Brown, would you like some as well? Are you good, Mr. Thacker?
That's okay.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler?
Can you go back to the slide that Mr. Thacker first asked me? First thing, I've got employee health care on the agenda later. I'm going to just bring this up now. I think that obviously this is something we really need to get our arms around. We've got some issues, and what we have now is unsustainable. We're going to go broke if we keep what we have. So what I asked, I guess, Mrs. Luciano, is I think we probably need a workshop. And in that workshop, I think we need to be presented with clinics that have worked and, you know, what all is involved. Now, also on this slide right here, you really believe in everything on this slide, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I just want to, I'm glad you do, because you got deficit spelled wrong twice on this. So, you know, I would encourage you in the future to, you know, take a closer look at something you believe in so carefully. And I got to ask Mr. Muniz, I got to put you on the spot.
Bus drivers, $15,947.
So what are you hearing from them relative to health insurance?
Bus drivers can't afford to go to the hospital.
And cafeteria workers?
They can't.
And how many, and out of our...
Even if you've got a family deductible, it's our family maximum out of pocket. It's, you know, you're looking at huge dollars.
And out of all of our employees, how many bus drivers and cafeteria workers? How many non-professional workers are there? 60,
I have approximately 600 people who work in transportation and about 500 and odd that work in food service. So I have 1,100 employees who are in that low pay.
That's 1,100. It doesn't even include custodians. So we have about 1,100 employees.
Seventh of our district.
You can't afford it.
And that doesn't include classroom assistants, doesn't include custodians, doesn't include maintenance workers.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Soto?
Yeah, just briefly, first, I have to say that you've done a wonderful presentation, at least by what I expect. Because this is a very, very complex issue. You have a challenge that you have to present it, and obviously, you know, record it for posterity, you know. And I think you've done a great job. You know, I think that especially, and, you know, not just for new members, but even I've been here. And I tell you, it's not always that things come across so clear. I also understand the need for expertise, even you know, within your own professional capacity. You know, that said, if what we're having right now and the points that have been brought up by the other board members and Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Muniz, is that you know, we have these challenges, then it's probably incumbent upon us to go ahead and explore what other options can be so that we're satisfied that what we're doing is the best that we possibly can for those employees that right now, you know, they're really, really in a precarious position that something can happen to them and they will not be able to afford health care. And that's really the comment I wanted to say. Thank you very much for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. And if I can have an email of this presentation sent to me, I would appreciate it very much. You don't need to spell check it. It was wonderful, good work. Thank you.
Okay, my comments, board, are that I don't think, first of all, great job, guys. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the time you took with me to kind of walk through some of this and answer some of my questions earlier as well, Mr. Cease. To me, with all due respect, we're not the problem. It's the system and the way that healthcare is established. Exactly, the market is the problem, and we are having to respond and react to what it is handed to us. And this district has shown a very clear commitment to our employees. I mean, the $6,100 that we're contributing equates to $40 million a year that we're spending to help underwrite the cost for our employees to have this benefit. At the same time, when we look at that, I'm not convinced when we've got a vendor that's working for us that's saving us over $200,000 by doing their job, that's saving us $1.38 million, I think was the number that you said, on an annualized basis, that has given us a track record that's showing that they're getting the job done for us. My personal opinion is they're not our problem. They're an advocate and an asset for us. Our problem is that we need to continue to be creative and collaborative and looking outside of the box, as we've talked about, to try to figure out what are we going to do to help further mitigate our concerns. My personal opinion is that if we went the route of not approving the renewal of the contract, which is later in our agenda, that we would just be setting ourselves back even further, and we'd be sitting here in another year or another 6 months having an even worse conversation about what it is that we need to do. I think that looking at, and I know the superintendent and I have talked about this, and we were going to go on a tour of a clinic, and the superintendent went. The staff has been working and meeting with the county and the cities and Toho and surrounding school districts and trying to figure out what is the best practice and what is it that we can do. My opinion is that this board remains incredibly committed to trying to figure out how to solve this, but we are confined by what the market is allowing us to do and what the performance of the market is delivering to us as a provider of health benefits to our employees. And so, again, it's kind of similar to the comment I made a couple meetings ago. I don't really see that Gallagher is our issue. I think that the fact, I'll give you an example. I think the fact that our system is set up the way it is the problem, and I made that point. A third payer system where nobody really cares or understands what it is that health insurance is really costing them, or the cost of medical care is really costing them, let's be honest, that's the problem. The problem is that people go to the doctor and they don't know, nor do they really care whether or not it's going to be $100 or $200. In their mind, they think, I only have to pay $35 and I'm good. And they're not equating the cost of what it's really costing up and downstream. When we think about this, that $40 million, it's not our money. It's the taxpayers' money. The taxpayers are making an incredible investment to say to our staff that we value and we want to try to help you, but we're an education institution. We can't solve every single problem and need that our staff has, but we work diligently to try to figure out solutions to help us get there. So again, I'll just repeat my point. I don't think that Gallagher's our issue. I think they've been a great asset for us. You've proven it yet again in the numbers that you provided. I do think you did an outstanding job tonight of kind of laying out the facts. I think this board needs to continue to be committed to look at this, review this, and try to do everything we can to try to provide the benefits for our employees that we can, while at the same time our employees need to understand that there's a limited pool of money for us to work from, and we can't continue to operate in the red and continue to draw down a deficit that is ultimately going to end up bankrupting the entire system. So it has to be both sides, and I'm not implying that's not the case from any employee that's here, any employee that's been listening, but I want you to know that there really is two sides to this coin. So, board, again, my point is that I don't think Gallagher's the issue. I think our staff is doing a great job trying to figure out how to crack this nut. They're trying to be creative. They're trying to go with the ideas that the previous board, and I know this current board, is going to put forth to them to explore on our behalf, and I believe that this board is going to remain committed to our employees to try to figure out what is the best way for us to provide quality benefits while also making sure that we don't end up depleting the limited resources we have to work with. So with that, Mr. Booth.
I just wanted to say one thing. I didn't mean to come behind you there, Chairman. I just wanted to say thank you to you both for sitting down with me, going over these numbers. And I don't know, are you coming back up for the Gallagher later?
Maybe. We will.
Okay, then I'll hold my other question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wheeler?
Tim, I think that you're on track. I think that this board is generous relative to the financial commitment. $40 million is a lot of money. But the point is that $40 million, I think we can find a better way to spend that money to deliver services that people can't afford. I don't think we need to necessarily spend more. We need to spend smarter. And relative to the market is out there. We can't afford to play in the market. That's what it comes down to. It's a marketplace that, we're not charging tuition. We can't charge more like Disney for a bucket of popcorn or for parking or for a hotel room. We are funded the way we're funded, and we need to spend those dollars smarter. And I think that we almost are painted into a corner where we've got no choice but in some fashion to be delivering health care, not just be providing insurance for it. It's too bad we've got to have this conversation. I mean, we can't just spend our time talking about graduation rates, reading scores, math scores, but this is something that's just going to eat us alive, and we just can't keep on doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree, and we do need to continue to explore that avenue of what do we do outside of just providing the benefit.
We need to find that solution sooner rather
very
than
quickly.
later.
I agree with you 100%. Mr. Thacker?
I just really want to encourage, I know Melva, you meet with the community leaders, your counterparts, and I believe you meet with the other chairman of the board, that I think it's extremely important that you two keep delivering the message that we've got to figure this out, and maybe as a whole community, not just a school board, not just a county, not just a utility authority or a city. And I can't believe that more is not better. A bigger pot is better. And if we can take it from 7,000 to 11,000 or however many employees we have around this place, is there an opportunity there? So I would just encourage you two to keep carrying that message for us.
I agree 100%. Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Okay, gentlemen, nothing else, board? Okay, gentlemen, thank you for your time and your presentation, and of course for your work that you do day to day.
Nice job.
Okay, board, we are down to regular agenda items. We're in curriculum instruction.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I just want to point out something to the new board members. If you, gentlemen, you watch meetings, you've been at meetings, typically in a lot of these things, we'll take like the curriculum instruction, like in this instance, A through D and math. Unless somebody's got an issue with something, then by all means, we're not telling you not to pull it. Part of the reason doing that is, number one, we should all be prepared. And number two, part of my thinking when I was chairman and started doing this is because these people have been here all day long. They worked a full day, and they've got kids and husbands and wives and families that I would assume you want to go home to, and you want dinner. So to be considerate of them, we'd like to get them out as quickly as we can also. So I'll make a motion to approve on the curriculum and instruction items A through D as presented.
Thank you, board. Under regular agenda items, curriculum instruction, we have a motion by Mr. Wheeler, second by Mr. Thacker, I believe. Is that correct? On the approval of letter A through D. Board, is there any discussion on these items? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion does carry 5-0. Board, under Deputy Superintendent for Operations, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve item E for the 15-16 academic calendar as submitted.
Thank you. We do have a motion by Mr. Wheeler with a second by Mr. Soto on the approval of letter E. Board, is there any discussion?
As long as we have rodeo day on there, we're good.
We do. We do.
Florida Cattlemen's Association Day too, you missed that.
All those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion does carry 5-0 as well. Before we are now down to business and finance, what is your pleasure on these items?
Approve items F through J.
Mr., I'd like to remove J and approve, if you don't mind.
Move to approve items F through I.
Second.
Okay. But we do have a motion by Mr. Thacker with a second by Mr. Booth on the approval of letters F through I under business and finance. Board, is there any discussion on those items? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion does carry 5-0. Letter J, Board, what is your flavor?
I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Board. Under letter J, we do have a motion by Mr. Soto with a second by Mr. Thacker. A discussion, Mr. Wheeler.
I'm gonna be voting against this. I'm sitting here, I got a guy 2 seats down who's telling me I got 1,100 employees who really can't participate in something that was put together from the market. It's from the marketplace. And you know, I'll say this, I mean, we've got this book. It's a nice book. I don't know how much it costs to put this book together, but for a lot of our employees, it just doesn't work. Have you seen this book?
I'm part of it.
Okay.
The book.
Okay. So I just want to go on the record with that.
Okay. Board, any discussion on this item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Aye.
The motion does carry 4-1. Board, we're under Information and Technology Services. What is your pleasure on
Motion
this
to
item?
approve item K, under 11K is submitted.
Thank you. Board, we do have a motion by Mr. Wheeler with a second by Mr. Thacker on the approval of letter K. Any discussion, Board? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion does carry 5-0. Board, what's your pleasure under facilities?
Under facilities, I'll make a motion to approve items L through O as submitted.
Second.
Well, we do have a motion
Discussion?
by Mr. Wheeler with a second by Mr. Soto on the approval of letters L through O with discussion to Mr. Wheeler.
Mr. Wells, I've got a
Yes.
real simple and short question. I apologize for not calling you sooner, but I think I know the answer, but I gotta ask it. On L, is that classroom wing gonna be done in time for August?
Yes, it will.
That's all I needed to know, thank you.
Mr. Thacker?
Just to be clear, the motion's L through O, right?
Yes, sir.
Great, yeah, the superintendent pulled P.
Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with O in there. I just have a comment on O. The 16 acres that are out at Stony Brook South, Clyde and I've had this conversation, and it's really, I just want to throw out a comment for the board. I don't have a problem with approving it. It's an interesting location for a school, I think. It's an area that is in the middle of a short-term rental area. And I guess, you know, we've got a whole county plan that's got an urban growth area over here, actually right over here towards Neptune, around the lake. We've got growth areas going up and down 15 with single-family residents, multifamily, and so forth. I just think we ought to really look, as we're looking at properties and developers, we're asking developers for properties, to be creative in the future. Maybe if there's property and we want to work with a developer, maybe there's something you trade out in a different way, in a different section, that would be what I would consider more beneficial immediately to us. So, just a comment.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, sir. Before there's a vote, I think in particular item O, there may be people who want to speak to it, and the procedure is that they get to speak before there's a vote on it if they're here to speak on that item.
Sure. Mr. Wheeler?
I'd just like to point out, number one, I appreciate the conveyances, I appreciate what's going on there, but I want to say, Clarence, to your point, there's two issues. Number one, in that area, unless they're deeded for short-term rentals turn into single-family homes after a certain period of time, and that area is exploding with population. We could, I mean, but to your point, we're getting to the point practically where I could take you, I could blindfold you, give you a dart, spin you around with a map of Osceola County. You could throw a dart there in each school, wherever that dart lands. So wherever we can get something, that's good for us. I think this will be good for us. But your point's well taken. I mean, there are plenty of areas, and we're going to talk about that later in the meeting. So I appreciate your point, and I appreciate Mr. Nicholas being here for this.
Thank you, Board. I do have a few comments, and I'm actually going to ask for something from you on this as well. On letter M, and Clyde, I did mention this to you earlier,
yes,
about seeking some additional compensation for the delay that we realized with the opening of our TECO West campus.
Yes, our staff will be working to do the final closeout on the financials for this, and there will be some give and take on both sides, I'm sure.
Correct. And I just want to make the
With
board
the
aware that
architect
that was
as well.
something that we may be looking at there as well, and that may be a benefit. The other thing was that on the impact fee study, board right now, as the motion is presented, we'd be adopting the current rates as they're presented in the study, and I recognize that may be the intent of the motion. It's my opinion that we should not adopt the rates in their full form, but we should do it with a 10% reduction, which is the current approach that we've been taking as a board thus far. If you want me to go through my rationale, I'd be glad to. Otherwise, I'd be happy to hear if there's any other board members that have some dialogue or discussion to share on that particular item. Mr. Wheeler?
I do. Mrs. Luciano and I talked at length about this. Number one, we can't afford to give 10% away. That's number one. Number two, we are going to be going, we've got a great board. We want to be successful in Tallahassee and Washington lobbying for whatever monies that are out there, be it for capital, curriculum, operations, wages, whatever the money is for. And do not think that it will fall on deaf ears if you go up to Tallahassee and say, we need money. Hey, you just gave 10% back. What do you need the money for? I mean, I've lived it. And not with impact fees necessarily, but with some grants that we gave the money back on. So I think that in this instance, we need the money. And I support the full fees.
I understand that.
I'm going to make a brief comment. This is one of those, this is something that has been, that the district, Mass Communications, they strongly recommend. I think that the rationale from Mr. Wheeler makes sense, but specifically when considering the things that that the district can do, I'm going to follow the district recommendation on this one as well.
Okay, I respect that. Do you guys want to comment or no? If not, I have. Okay. Guys, here's part of my thought, and I shared this at our workshop, and I shared this, I think, at our last board meeting when we had some of this conversation. Impact fees, the thought of impact fees is that the developer is paying it, and we know that the developer is paying it up front, but ultimately it's being passed along to the consumer, and it's ultimately increasing the cost of real estate. When you look at the median home price in Osceola County, which has gone up 32% over the last 24 months, and then you look at a 16% increase on our impact fees, and you look at what the median income is and people's ability to actually afford real estate in this community, which is really what's driving this recovery that we're seeing in Osceola County, I think by going too far too fast that we're setting ourselves up for some problems. The simple reality of it is there's been study after study that has shown by increasing impact fees it's actually not going to create this windfall that we all think. It's not going to solve our problem, but instead it has the potential of further hurting and threatening what is still a very fragile and emerging business sector in this community that really our economy has been built on for many years. I've mentioned to you as well in the past that real estate, if anyone doesn't think that real estate is both at the front edge of a recession or at the back end of a recession and bringing it back out of it, I would ask you to just go back to 2007 and see what happened and think about maybe even your own home or people that you know what took place with that. This sector of our economy is vitally important in Osceola County, and I don't honestly believe that by imposing a 16% increase on the consumers, on the taxpayers of Osceola County, that is the right approach for us to take at this time. I want you to know I fully understand and respect not only the superintendent's recommendation, staff's recommendation as well, and I fully understand that we have a serious capital need that we need to deal with. I just don't think that this is what's going to solve it, and I think this actually may end up being an impediment to us in the long run. Those are my thoughts on it. I understand if you don't see it the same way, but I look forward to dialogue if appropriate. Mr. Thacker?
I hear you. I've had many conversations about this with Mr. Adams and Mr. Walter to try and really understand the issue. I guess where I come down is a couple different issues, a couple different pieces to this. One, we've got studies out there, and I think they'll agree that it takes a home valued in the neighborhood somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000 to pay for the services it receives through ad valorem. We have a tremendous amount of houses in this community that are far below that. I think the $1,000, if it goes up to or the $1,300, whatever it is, I think that is a big impact on a lower value house, a $150,000 house. I don't think it's a material impact on a $250,000 house. Quite frankly, I don't want to sell the county short. I think we need more $250,000 homes. And if anything that pushes the value up a little bit, helps the ad valorem come back through, it's gotta help us. If you look at, we don't have the other sources. If you look at Orange County, for example, they're 81 billion in property values. We're 18 billion. That's roughly 4.5 times what we have. They have three and a half times the number of students that we have, and little over 3 times the number of staff that we have. So they've got an extra pot out there of almost 1 time the ad valorem. They've got almost our 18 billion that's above what we have if you just portionalize it out. We don't have that. We're a young county. For the growth we've had in the last 25 years. I wish we didn't have to do it. We got to find other sources. I agree it's not the answer. I think now we've got to have it, and I would be the first one to say if we can get legislative relief in some other manner, I'd go back and take a look at doing it a different way or a reduction. But I just think now, if we had 5 ways we could go get money, I'd be looking at 5 different, if you could attack them all. The appetite for a referendum, I think, is probably minimal right now. I think at some point we're going to have to look at some of that, and it's going to have to get the community support, the community involved. We're going to have to get the home builders involved, other people involved to say, okay, this isn't working. We got to get another way for some revenue. And I think at the point we're at right now, it's basically our one trigger, and I think we have to. I agree with Mr. Soto. I'm for pulling that trigger at this point. At 100%.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Thacker, you sure this is your first board meeting? I couldn't have said it better myself. I agree 100% with you. You're right. There are so few sources of revenue that when we have one, we have to take full advantage of whatever sources of revenue we have. So you said it very well, and obviously you're going to make a terrific board member based on the soliloquy you just gave us. Thank you.
Mr. Booth?
I won't be as eloquent as Clarence. He's a very eloquent guy.
Except it's rodeo day.
Yeah. But look, I have to agree with Clarence and Jay. Here's a chance that we have for these folks to make an investment in the community. And I think Clarence said it best. If we have that chance to then come back, if our budget needs are met by the state, or if we have some other sources of revenue that we can tap in, then we can go back and take that down. But now I don't see another source there.
Okay. Thank you. I do know that there are some gentlemen here that did want to speak on this item. Do you still wish to speak at this time, or have you heard enough from the board at this point that you'd rather?
I'm not sure there's anything I can say to change the vote.
I understand. I just want to make sure I gave you an opportunity to recognize you as well.
I can go on record with our recommendations if you'd like, Mr. Chairman.
You can if you wish. Does anybody not know the recommendation from Growth Management?
Okay. There's one piece that I'm not sure where the recommendation is, and that is that I've heard discussion on is the short term, or the resort. What do we
resort
call it?
house.
Sure. So Larry, why don't you, if you would, come up and.
That's not in the plan, right?
That's not
correct.
That's not addressed by this study.
So if we approve this vote, becomes a non-issue in this vote, right?
Correct. That would be something
It's
for us to
non-issue in
explore
this
later.
vote.
Larry, if you would, for protocol, state your name and address for the record.
I would be happy to. My name's Larry Walter. I'm at 400 West Emmett Street, Kissimmee, Florida. Have lived here pretty much my whole life, and I just want to make one observation. I did not know until tonight that Mr. Bateman and Mr. Kaufman were psychologists. Because when I was in school, when you needed a psychologist, that's where you got sent. And they adjusted your attitude and,
from the bottom up.
Yeah, from the bottom up, and sent you back to class, and everything was really good. Now, most of you probably don't know them because you weren't here many years ago and went to school here. But Mr. Bateman and Mr. Kaufman had a direct impact on the attitude that you had.
Well, Mr. Walter,
system.
Based on that, my father was a psychologist also.
Yeah, so was mine.
So that's your opinion on impact fees, huh?
The only thing that you've not discussed today is, and we've talked about it before, and I'd like to just have a few minutes on that, is the resort area housing. We call it short-term rental, we call it other things. We're not asking you to eliminate impact fees for resort residential. What we're asking you to do is to add it as a dwelling unit. It's a different dwelling unit than the ones that you have. You have single-family residential outside the overlay that's out there. You have multifamily, you have mobile homes. And your staff gave us the information since the last time we were here that actually shows that the generation rate inside the West Resort overlay is actually about half of what the generation rate is inside. We're only asking you to add a dwelling unit to your system that would make it more correct and more fair to that industry of resort residential, which in the only place that it's at is in the overlay out there. That would be our recommendation for you to consider that, whether you do it today or whether you follow up with that information at another time. And so I guess I would say that we understand from a business community that education is really important for the sustainability of our community. We certainly understand that because of all the reasons that Mr. Thacker said, that you do need the funding to fund your infrastructure because you're part of the infrastructure here. I guess just as you're talking about, we've asked for you to do the 10% so that we wouldn't put cold water on the actually warming up of the industry so fast and to cool it down. Because as that builds, certainly your income from ad valorem also increases. We know that that's not appropriate. We know that the state needs to deal with that. And we know that we have to have a good education system. It's pretty hard, just so that you know, no matter how bad we need it, it's pretty hard to go out there and market the highest impact fee for schools in the state. It's hard to do that. However, we would challenge you to say that if you're going to have the highest, then you got to give us something to sell, which we got to have the best education system then to sell. We got to be the best in the state, because then we can go sell to the industries that's going to help develop Osceola County. That yes, you may pay the highest impact fee, but you also got the best education system. So we challenge you to give us that if we're going to have the highest impact fee in the state, which we will if you approve what you've stated. So along with that, we appreciate the effort. I want to let you know that Mr. Wells and Mr. Crow have done a good job working with the Growth Management Task Force, and I would recommend that you would give them the High Five Award because they've done a really good job. And so this has been a good process. It's been informative. It's been open. And yes, sometimes we just happen to disagree. So thank you very much.
Wow, you timed that very well.
Oh, look at that. Right on. Great.
I will say I fast-forwarded that on you. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Mr. Wheeler, you're up.
A couple things. First off, Larry, I appreciate your comments. And I'll say it's relative, first off, and I appreciate your challenge also, relative to producing the best school system. I sincerely appreciate that challenge, and I didn't take it lightly, and it didn't fall on deaf ears with me. As far as the tourist corridor overlay, if those units are deed-restricted short-term rental, I think it's great. But you look at Indian Wells and Indian Ridge; those all at one time were considered resort communities, and now you've got, I don't know what the percentages are, but it's well over half of both those communities are occupied by, traditional families that they're not short-term rentals. So unless something is deed-restricted, where it's for short-term rental, it might be in that corridor. Eventually, it's going to become older inventory, and it's going to convert into regular single-family homes. So, yeah, we have, and we've got to protect our sources of revenue. But I do appreciate the challenge relative to producing the best school system. That I do truly appreciate. Thank you.
Mr. Thacker.
I've got a question, two questions actually, one for you, Clyde, and one for Mr. Brown. Clyde, can you just comment your opinion on the 50% roughly the value that the short terms are running at? And Mr. Brown, can you comment? We have three-tier system now: single-family, multifamily, and mobile home. And I think part of the reason, I guess, my understanding of the reason we have that is because there's justifications based on the impact that they are indeed generating. If the short-term or the resort areas are indeed generating a lower volume, do we have an obligation there or not? What is our stance for that?
Legally, no obligation. Now, the current educational impact fee ordinance provides for an alternative assessment petition. So a developer always has the right to petition, and it used to be they would come before the school board, and we had one of those hearings. I took a glance at the ordinance, apparently got amended, so it goes to the superintendent and her staff, and then they would have a right to ultimately a judicial review. and they would have to petition, and they would have the burden of proof of showing that an alternative assessment methodology is appropriate to their particular development.
So that would be development by development.
That would be the development by, and that's already built into the ordinance.
Okay.
To understand a fourth category of dwelling unit, I'd have to see it in detail, what the proposal would be. It's theoretically possible that it could be justified, but if it ends up being that it's nothing more than we're in an area that's zoned for short-term rental, we're developing this thing with a marketing plan that is going to be sold to investors who are going to short-term rent it, that probably isn't enough, because it's going to be really a dwelling unit, and you don't look at short-term failure to achieve the student generation rate in the study, because you could, and I've talked to Rhonda about this, you know, 55% is the west side of rate of student generation, 55% of the studies rate. I'm sure you could find mature neighborhoods that are not zoned for short-term rental where you have less than 100%. And so it's all a question of averages, and the court cases say that if you start to try and tailor things for particular communities, you run the risk of making it an unconstitutional tax or an unconstitutional user fee, or you could violate equal protection if you have short-term rental area in the west side, and that's where we want the discounts, so somehow we're going to ignore properties that are similarly situated in a likewise zone. These are just all the problems that would have to be worked through. It's hard to do from the dais, but there's no legal obligation to do what you're saying at this point, but it theoretically could be possible, depending on how you do it, to come up with a fourth category, but it's got to be something more than, you know, hey, we want to market it for short term.
Well, I still want Clyde's answer, but based on that, I guess since we do have a motion out here.
Well, I'm gonna let Rhonda answer that,
Okay.
Clarence. She's run those
If the board
numbers.
brought
and
up, we could have this
very-
discussion, you know, down the road a little bit. I would like to see us maybe have that dialogue, have you do a little more looking on that, Larry.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, Rhonda.
Basically, you're wanting me to answer the fee differences if we were to.
No, it's not just the fee differences. Do you agree at the 55% generation? And do you think there's logic with that or not? Or what are your concerns with that from a staff perspective?
Well, when I talked to Larry, my concern is the impact fees are an average across the district as a whole. So you're gonna have communities that are building above the average, you're gonna have communities building below the average, and you're gonna have communities building consistently as we think they're gonna generate. So it takes an average. So, you know, you need it all to go in together to get that final dollar amount. There are 14,225 residential homes in what they refer to as the West Side overlay, but there is another overlay in the community, more in this centralized area, that is also considered a short-term overlay. So my concern becomes, why would we assess them at 100% and only exempt the short-term rentals that are on the west side of the county at the 55%? I haven't quite figured out how we could do an apple and an orange and then have your regular residential in there as well. When I did take the 14,000 homes, I gave it a 30-year build out, and at not the rate you approved tonight, because I wasn't sure what you were gonna do. So I used the reduced rates we've been using for the past 3 years. If I took that same community, a community of 14,000 homes, and built it out over 30 years, at the reduced rate, we would get $3.6 million. At the recommended 55% rate, we would get just a little more than $2 million a year. So over 30 years, we'd lose $1.6 million a year, per year for 30 years. So that's a lot of money for us when we're looking at space utilizations, relocatables, wings, and we're in dire need of new facilities. But I worry more about how you separate the two classes of short-term rentals and not treat them all equally.
And I think that piece is more important than the pure dollar amount, because the dollar amounts are what.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My follow-ups would be that I don't believe that, and Larry, you're front, so I'll look at you. I don't believe they're just specifically talking about short-term rental. They're talking about a specific class of residential resort that would only be in that overlay area that the county commission would have to ultimately identify. And so I think, to your point, Clarence, this could be something that we can continue to have dialogue on and see how and when and if we can work through that. Sure, Brock. To see if there's an option for us to explore something like that down the road. I guess the only other thing I would say, Board, is as it stands right now, we have a motion for letters L through O. Brock, I want to tell you I appreciate the Stony Brook property, and I know that that's going to end up proving to be an asset for all of us in this community, and we want to make sure that you know that it's appreciated from this board. I'll be voting against the motion because it does include the approval of letter N as submitted, but I want you to know it has nothing to do with your particular property. I'm glad to receive it and make sure that it gets used for good educational purposes out there. You wanted to address the board, though?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, I was really using Stony Brook as an example, not that specific piece of property. It was just the area.
Brock Nicholas, 8930 Champions Gate Boulevard. Listen, for Lennar Homes, we support education. We need to make investments here, and I don't envy the position that facilities is in, trying to juggle the capital needs and the capacity constraints of the district. The math is daunting, and the county's growing, and this problem isn't going anywhere. You need to look for other solutions. Just some quick examples, though, about equity relative to the short-term rental communities. The statement that, maybe 20 years down the road, a short-term rental community will somehow become a primary residential community, certainly that possibility exists. I guess when you look at the balance that Clarence was talking about, $225,000 roughly is the break-even. You say 225?
Somewhere between 200 and 250.
So many of these short-term communities that are coming out of the ground they have average sales prices in the 500,000 range, and they're not generating students, which means that after 20 years of ad valorem collection, you're well out of balance on that equity deal. And I'll just give you two quick examples. We have two very successful projects in Osceola County, short-term rental. One is Paradise Palms up off Westside Boulevard, just south of 192. To date, the project has paid right around $5 million in impact fees. We have from the county's GIS and Rhonda, and the team has been fantastic with sharing data. It's generated 0 students. So right now the developers paid $5 million real money into the district capital fund, generated no students out of that development. There's another 617 homes that have been built, sold in Champions Gate. That's the Stony Brook South DRI, which you all are familiar with. 304 of those units are multifamily apartments. To date, the Champions Gate development has generated $4.47 million in impact fees. We have, on record, 5 students being generated out of that property. So maybe to Larry's point, we may have some sort of an equity issue there. We've got $9.5 million in capital being paid, 5 students being generated, plus the donation of the land. And so I don't think you could argue with our commitment to education in that sense. We're paying roughly $2 million a student. That's a big number for us. And I think that what the averages say countywide is that the capital required per student is somewhere around $22,000 per child, maybe in the elementary grade level. And they're contributing about 0.4 students per dwelling on average. So that's where you come up with that 10,000 number. So the average is 10,000. I've got 2 projects within 1 mile of each other in a major tourism corridor. We paid roughly $2 million per student. There's a lack of equity in how we've arrived at the formula. I just think we ought to look at that lack of equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Brock. Mr. Thacker, your light's on. Did you wish to speak again?
Just for a minute ago.
Okay, no worries. I got you. Okay. Board, is there any discussion on these items? Okay. Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor of approving letters L through O, please indicate by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, and I would vote no, so the motion carries 4-1. Thank you guys for your work and collaborating with us, sharing your input. We look forward to communicating with you further on this as well. Okay, Board, that brings us down to Superintendent's update.
Yeah, just a couple of things that I want to remind the board members of, and we will send you an email with all of these dates, but we're going to have a very busy December. At the beginning of December, we have a joint conference of school board members and superintendents, and then we have 2 parades on December 13th, the Poinciana Kissimmee one, and on the 6th, we have a St. Cloud one, and a very important date is December 12th, which is Principal for a Day. So we'll send you that information, but just wanted to remind you that we're going to be very busy in the month of December. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent. That does bring us now at this time down to new business. Mr. Wheeler, you had a number of items that you
I will try to be as brief as I can. Health insurance, obviously, we had a healthy discussion about this, and I'm just going to reiterate what I said earlier. I think that we really need a workshop to explore different options. And, I invited at this board meeting, Rosen Hotels has their own clinics. And I attended a function in Orlando where one of the speakers was the guy who runs the clinics for Rosen Hotels. I asked him to come give a presentation. Mrs. Luciano asked me to remove him from the agenda because they're asking him for a proposal. So I guess what I'm really looking for is some sort of a working meeting where we can have different ideas brought to us, but not just from staff. Let's hear from Rosen Hotels. Let's bring someone from Polk County Schools, from St. Johns County Schools, from the city of Ocoee, et cetera, who's got these clinics, and find out from them directly, which is not a knock on anybody, but what they're doing, what works, what doesn't work, so we can ask direct questions to them. That's what I would ask, and I would ask you to coordinate that probably sometime after New Year's. That's all I've really got on that, unless anyone wants to bring up anything relative to that.
I would just say I agree.
I agree.
Okay, good.
Agree.
Second, growth management. It's been spoken about that we are growing. Depending who you talk to, we're either the fastest or third, between the first, second, or third fastest growing county in the state of Florida, depends who you talk to. And to that end, I think that we need to have another workshop special meeting for all the board members to see what the capacity projections are going to be for next year and the following year and the year after that, along with the capital needs and how we're going to meet those capital needs, or how we don't have the money to meet those capital needs, so we can consider other options. But I think the sooner we have that meeting, this is something that Mr. Weissar, Mr. Soto, and I have been through, but I think that Clarence and Ricky, I think it's important to get you guys, this is something that we really need to get our arms around. You need to understand the challenges and the shortfalls we may have and the solutions to meet those shortfalls. So that's the second one I've got. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, now, student achievement. Got some data here I'm going to pass out. This is from the superintendent sent this out last June. This is our school letter grades this is for elementary schools. And we had 12 schools go down. I'm just not telling you what to do with this. Then we've got, superintendent also sent this out. This is FCAT math for grades 6, 7, and 8. And this I'm passing out. We were in 13 and 14 below the state average for grades 6, 7, and 8 in math. In grade 8, we were significantly below state average. Then going to science for grades 5 and 8. Again, not as bad, but we are below the state average in both of these. And this is data that was given that the superintendent sent in June. They're sending copies out to someone down the hall. Here is reading for grades 9 and 10. Again, we're below the state average with these. Here is readings for grades 6, 7, and 8. Unfortunately, again, we're below the state average. And then finally, here's readings for grades 4 and 5. We are below the state average with these also. And I also want to point out that we had a strategic plan passed. I voted against it. There was an item on there for 9th grade algebra pass rates. To have 44% passing was considered acceptable and approved, and that means 56% not passing would be considered acceptable. I think that we need a discussion at some point and a workshop relative to what our goals are for student achievement and what we find acceptable and unacceptable. And I wanted to give you data to digest. This is something that was sent to all of us, so I would encourage you to look at it, talk to people, talk to staff, and Mrs. Luciano, again, that's, I think, a workshop or special meeting we need to have also. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that.
just have a quick comment for clarification. It wasn't deemed that that was acceptable to achieve that level. What it was is that we needed to establish a benchmark of growth between where we are to where we need to go within a given year. And, you know, obviously, we would all love to see all of those numbers be 100%, but we can't increase, you know, 40 percentage points or 50 percentage points in 1 year. And so the board had to, with the superintendent, identify a benchmark of growth between where we were last year to where we need to be this year. But I want to just make sure that, at least for my benefit and point, there was never any thought whatsoever on my behalf, and I think from anyone else, that having half of our students or more than half of our students not pass was anywhere close to being acceptable. Mr. Thacker.
I don't think we can talk about this enough. It gets back to what Larry Walter said. If we're going to charge people, let's give them a product. And half the people here have probably heard the statistic over and over, but Seminole County has 1,000 acres in their urban growth boundaries left to develop. Orange County has 10,000 acres, and Osceola County has 100,000 acres. Growth is coming here. Hopefully we didn't just stifle it a minute ago. I'm really hopeful that we didn't, but it's coming. We're growing fast, and my fear is, or the biggest fear I have is that we could have, I think it's a quality of growth that I'm concerned with. And the way we get that, I believe that we increase that quality is the quality of our student achievement, to where we can brag and we can tell people, live here and work here. You'll be able to raise your families here. You'll be proud of what your families can do. So I don't think we can talk about this too much.
Great. I agree. Great point. Thank you. Mr. Wheeler?
And now, school board member training and support. Mrs. Luciano and I attend.
Luciano, I'm sorry, I didn't have the opportunity to respond.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
It's okay? Sure. I know that, Mr. Woodard, you've been asking about the strategic plan, and I'm assuming that you gave them a copy of that. Is that the
I didn't know that. I referenced it. I did not give a copy of it.
So I know there's concern about what the actual goal is. So in your best estimate,
There was 40, going from 39 to 44% for
I'm
ninth
asking
grade.
you, what is an acceptable goal?
Oh, I would say anything less than 50 is unacceptable. Initially, based on where we were at 39, and beating the state average is really what I would consider the first goal. I don't know what that state average is, but I think we really need to meet the state average.
So what I pulled up here for you and actually given out is how we derived at some of these goals, and that discussion was raising it to 50 when we had the board meeting, and that's actually what's on the strategic plan now. But let me help you walk through how we derive at those goals, okay? And since, like you've stated several times, we got maybe some new people working in the data, maybe it would be helpful to get a landscape of what's going on here. So if we look at 7th grade 2012 data for FCAT in 8th grade, 48% of our students passed the 7th grade, 48% passed the 8th grade. Then we go to 13, it's 48%, but then it drops dramatically down to 32. What occurred in this particular year is that we stopped double testing 8th grade students. They no longer took both the 8th grade FCAT and the Algebra 1 EOC. So now what you're seeing here is the students that are lower level 3s up here, 2s and 1s, that are actually increasing their FCAT to pass at 32%. So you're not really comparing apples to apples when you look at this, but this is true 1s and 2s and low level 3s coming over here. So when you say, well, maybe the 40 or the 50% in your estimate is a good average, what you have to look at is over time, what are these students doing? So let's follow the cohort of students through 7th, 8th, and then to 9th grade. So in 7th grade, they're 48, but then you're saying, well, they dropped to 32. No, they didn't drop to 32. What occurred was we stopped double testing students. So these are actually the 1s, 2s, and low level 3s. Are we happy with this? Absolutely, we're not happy with it, but you've got to understand the actual students that are taking the assessment. So this is the students that we have the heaviest lift with, the teachers have the most work to do with, and it's 32%. So right here, when we're looking at 9th grade Algebra 1 EOC, these are not the 8th graders that are taking it. This is not the upper end of the bell curve. These are the kids right here that are 1s and 2s in 7th grade, 1s, 2s, and 3s in 8th grade, and you get 46% of the first-time 9th graders to pass this test. You got to consider what the heavy lift that the students have in doing this. And again, the same thing here. You're double testing these students. These 8th graders that have already passed it, they are not the ones taking it right here. These are the kids that are 1s, 2s, and low-level 3s as 8th graders, and 43% of them are passing this assessment. So when you come over here and you say, well, 44% is too low, or 45% is too low, or 46% is too low, they were 30% as 8th graders. So you got to understand what the teacher's lift is in this. 30% proficient as 8th grade, and now you're saying the 48 is not enough. So you got to compare and make sure you're looking at the students over time, and make sure you truly understand and digest the data for what it actually is. So when we discussed it at the board meeting, the staff actually increased it to 50, but what I'm asking you to understand and maybe process is 30% 1, 2s, and 3s here, not the upper end of the bell curve, the bottom end of it, and now you're setting a goal for that increase there. So this increase here is quite an increase there when you just consider, and actually for 14 they did pretty good with those 9th graders. Any questions on that one?
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler?
Yeah, I've got a few questions. Number one, I appreciate what you're showing me, but let me ask a question. From middles, then I guess the first question is, these kids coming out of elementary school going to middle school, in 5th grade, what are their scores, and how much are they falling in 6th grade? That's number one.
Okay,
then,
5th grade.
Then
To
5th to
6th
6th, okay?
Okay.
That's number one. So, and then number two, if they are falling off, then I would ask, from a comparative basis, how are the kids who are matriculating within a K-8 environment versus going from an elementary to a middle school faring, and is that maybe a potential consideration to fix where you do K-8s? Number two, if it's not, how do we, if the problem resides in middle school, okay, wherever it is, if we're talking cohort from grade to grade, at what point do we say, okay, we've got to do something different for these students starting in grade 4, 5, 6, 7, I don't know where, but I appreciate what you're showing me, but obviously there's some histrionics with it, and I don't know where to start and say, okay, here's where this group maybe needed to do better and didn't, and we need to do this. I don't know what to do different.
Okay, so that we don't change the question to begin with, are you in agreement that 45 or 50% is a pretty reasonable and smart goal in this situation?
I had a 5-minute presentation. When I approved the strategic plan was a 44% number. I guess I would need a little more time to dissect it.
But they come in as 30, so I'm just asking you right here, do you think the 45
I
or
guess
50?
the question is, why are they 30s? How do we get them before that to do better than 30?
Let's stick to the goal question that we're working on here. Is it from 30 to 45 or 50, considering the lift that the teachers have, is that a reasonable and smart goal?
Maybe, I have the 30 number I got a problem with. You're showing right
the 30 is reality. What I want you to
it.
realize is this is not the upper end of the bell curve. These were kids that were 1s and 2s right here. Right. The upper end of that bell curve, these 48%, the majority of them go on to Algebra 1. So you've lopped all those students off. And our Algebra 1 scores for 8th grade is like 80%. So these kids are knocking the top off. So we're all agreeing the good-to-go kids are doing real good. This is the heavy lift that you're asking for the teachers. So let's go back and look at it. All the time I have teachers say, yeah, these standards from 5th grade to 6th grade, they're getting a lot harder. And you know what my response is? I hope they are, because they got to pass this Algebra 1 EOC. So when you say that it looks like a decrease, or you're wondering what's happening, the standards get more rigorous each year, because the end goal here is these kids have to pass this test to graduate from high school. So I want you to really process when you say, I want 100%, absolutely I want 100%. That's not a realistic goal. I got to understand where I'm at in the trench with this situation, and I got to set a goal for these teachers where they understand, we understand where you're at, we understand where the students are at, and we want to make sure that this is a reasonable and smart goal for our staff, but also for the whole district. Because every Algebra 1 teacher is looking at this, saying, do they truly understand the magnitude of the lift of the students that are coming to our schools?
Dr. Akes, I think you bring up a great illustration here of exactly why we need a workshop. I think, and I appreciate the data, but there's a lot of stuff I handed out. This wasn't the only thing I talked about, but relative to this, I appreciate what you shared. And again, bringing this up right here, right now, just goes to reinforce why we need a workshop on this.
Sure, okay. Mr. Stone?
Dr. Akes. What we have here is basically 30% of our FCAT test takers that are right there in that, where the cursor is, being a different cohort than the one from 2013, because the ones that passed are not taking that FCAT. And so what we have now is that your instructional staff has to deal with a cohort of students that was going to require a lot more effort. And not only that, but with the new standards and with everything we've heard from the teachers and all these challenges that they're facing. Exactly. And I'm going to ask you this question about the last corner at the end there, that 50. Is that your expected value for that? Is that what you expect the outcome to be for 2015?
I'd do the dance of joy for a 50% for this year.
Is that what you are extrapolating by your efforts and what we have going from previous history that we're going to get in 2015?
Okay, Kelvin, what you're asking is dead on the right question. We went from 32 to 9th grade, 46.
Exactly, so you have done well.
You got to understand, these teachers really did an unbelievable job.
I was about to get to that. Exactly. If you draw another line. So it looks like it's going to be attainable almost, except that you went from 32 to 46. Now we got 30 to 50. So we have almost a 20% jump. Is that what you're proposing that we're going to do?
What I'm saying is, when we looked at it with 44, 45, that is an unbelievable lift.
It is.
I think considering.
But what we're reaching here for, it's, I guess Mr. Wheeler, and I would tend to agree with him, that 50% is probably going to be something that we really need to achieve, that we really should be shooting for.
When we started out the discussion, it was at about 45 or 44, I think, the copy that he's looking at. Between 45, if we get them above 45 to 50, this is the other thing that I know that y'all realize this. These kids have to pass this test. I want you to realize what the high school teachers do. We got about an 80% graduation rate. They get it done. It just may take us a few years and some time to do it. But whenever you take and lop off the upper end of that bell curve that have already passed it, already good to go, and then you look at what you got going on here, this is a seriously heavy lift for any high school math teacher to get it done. They're doing it though. And I think we'll hit it about 80% across the board for the pass rate here over time, but this is a tough one right here. This is tough and it's real.
And I understand, and you explained it very well. Thank you, Dr. Riggs.
Okay.
Thank
Whenever
you.
the board would like to, or Ms. Luciana sets it up, we'll be glad to go through it. But please be cognizant of, you need to look at those cohorts over time, and the fact that the rigor increases every year from 3rd to 4th to 5th to 6th. And then when we lop off the upper end of that bell curve, and we're doing acceleration all up in here. Mr. Allen intends to accelerate more with Algebra 1, geometry, biology, physical science. We're even going to offer some high school English classes in the middle school, doing everything we can to accelerate these kids. But
So Dr. Riggs, so there's other subjects that we're having the same type of goals that we have right now that we.
Yes, sir.
And finally, well, I'm just looking at your table there. It's very illustrative of what I think that is clear for anyone to really understand it, and I really appreciate it. We did 32, 46. Correct? Okay. All right. Good job. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If you have any other questions, I am updating the data for Ms. Luciana and the strategic plan. By the time we get ready to do the workshop, December, January, everything would be updated. And that includes when the high school grades comes out for graduation rate, AP rates, all that stuff. So,
I think the best part of this discussion is that I think you have a board that is serious and committed to making sure that we improve all of this and working with you to try to understand what needs to take place, what resources need to come alongside of our educators, and also making sure that we're putting together realistic and attainable goals, but also working very diligently to stretch beyond what we think is capable to get us there. And that's the only way we're ultimately going to get to our vision. So I appreciate everything you said, Dr. Ames.
Tim, I appreciate the time to be able to discuss it. I've told Melba this many times. The group, this whole community is committed to this, but you heard from the teachers, that's real stress that they're feeling. Paired with the lift that you've got right here, you got to be cognizant of. The teachers are in the trench every day committing to it. You go up there and set 70, 80% as a goal, that tells the teacher that you truly don't understand the lift they have with the new standards, new text and all that. So thank you for the time.
And Michael, you hit it on the head right there. Just listening to what the teachers were referring to earlier on and sharing about professional development and not having enough time, etc. When you have new standards in English language arts, in math, we have to make sure that our teachers are fully aware so that our children are prepared for these assessments. So there's just so much information that needs to be shared with our teachers so that that's when I think we find that teachers are frustrated in having to learn, having to teach, and having to look at data in order to ensure that our children are doing well. It is a very stressful time in our educational system.
Noted.
And I'm sorry, Mike Allen wanted to mention something.
Superintendent Luciano, Dr. Ace, you just absolutely hit the nail on the head of what I was going to say, is if a goal is set at a rate that seems unattainable, is absolutely defeating to the stakeholders. Generally across the nation, a 5% increase per year is considered a very healthy goal. Generally from the state, from Florida State Board and other states across the country, it's anywhere between 3 to 5%. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, again, you know, everything you said, I'm sure every board member respects, agrees with, and wants to try to find the balance with. And Mr. Wheeler, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we've got to look at how we're going to move the needle and balancing all of these fine details to make sure we get there while understanding that our human resource is one of the most important resources we have in this district, but also understanding that, you know, we have an inherent responsibility to make sure that we're doing the best we can to provide the highest quality and highest caliber education in this community to the students that are entrusted to our care at the same time. So that's the fine balance that we have to find. And Ms. Will, I think you did a great job of bringing this up and at least, again, stimulating some conversation surrounding this as we go forward.
I'd just like to point out, I'd just like to recognize someone. We happen to have the Chief Academic Officer for Orange County here, Dr. Fritz in the back, so I would encourage you to give him a call and see if maybe there's something we can collaborate on. I appreciate your coming here, Dr. Fritz.
Great. Mr. Wheeler, your other item was board member training and support.
Mrs. Luciano and I, on a monthly basis for at least 2 years, been attending the Central Florida Public School Boards Coalition meeting. And we did a roundtable recently asking, you know, there's 10 counties there. There's Marion Lake, Volusia, Orange, Osceola, Seminole, Polk, Brevard, and I know I'm missing somebody, I don't know, but there's 10 counties there. And went around asking, you know, what kind of support are you giving board members? And it varies, but, you know, by and large, you're getting some technology support, some office supply support, some training. And this is what, we had a board that recently was committed to starving board members from support for whatever reason. I think that we need to engage in training. We need to go to different training things. And you'll decide what's right for you. There's all kinds of facility meetings, there's curriculum meetings, there's lobbying, there's all kinds of things. And I think with that, anything in Florida a board member thinks will benefit them, benefit this board, I think that the district should support. Ms. Luciano and I talked about that. If you want to go outside the state of Florida for something, I think it should be up to the superintendent to see if they want to approve it. I think both of you would benefit from going to the National School Board Association meeting sometime in the next year or two, not necessarily right away, but I think there's some real benefit to find out what goes on in other states. For instance, I've attended, and in Louisiana, schools are used to deliver health care, which you wouldn't think about here, but they're funded differently and their communities are different, which is not to say we should do that, but that's for children, not for staff. And then as far as support, if you think you need a laptop, an iPad, whatever, I think that it should be available to you and talk to the superintendent about it. So with that, I don't know if I need to make a motion for that, if we just need a head nod for that. Are we good with that? Any questions, comments, et cetera?
What specifically you're asking for? Just wide open?
Oh, in Florida, well, no, in Florida, I think that if anyone wants to go to some trainings in Florida School Board Association, or they see something else that makes sense for them, I think that should be supported. If they want to go out of state, they need to talk to the superintendent. As far as support, talk to the superintendent, leave it up to her discretion.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to mention that the board did vote that each board member currently has $1,500 to travel. And so if that's a topic of conversation that Mr. Wheeler maybe want to change that or change the whole format on traveling, that's fine. But I want you to know that currently you voted a couple of years ago in regards to $1,500 per
I'll make a
board member.
motion to support training for board members within the state of Florida up to the superintendent's discretion. And then outside the state of Florida, it's the superintendent's decision.
So we do have a motion. Yeah, we do have a motion by Mr. Wheeler, second by Mr. Soto. Yeah, Jay, my concern, I don't know. I don't like the idea of putting the superintendent in the position of having to make the decision of whether or not she has one of her board members coming to her and saying, well, I want to go here, and I just think it sets us up for problems, and really I think it's more of our decision to make as a board than it is a superintendent's decision to make. I'd much rather see a conversation amongst us as the 5 board members to say, what do we think is reasonable? If there's a dollar amount that we want to talk about, then let's talk about it. If there's not a dollar amount, then let's talk about it conceptually.
I'll tell you what other boards are doing that.
Well, but I would definitely say that I don't like the idea of putting that burden on a superintendent. And then if you're looking for something specific, let's maybe have, this be my approach, is let's have a conversation of what that might be. Understand that part of the reason for this, whether or not we agree or not with the dollar amount, was to keep some restraint on board members from spending money that they don't need to spend and running around the state of Florida and where else on the dime of the taxpayer. So there's got to be a balance in how we deal with this.
Volusia, Hillsborough, they support any FSB, NSBA, and Tallahassee trips. Seminole County, anything with FSBA, Polk, FSBA, office clerk, laptop technology. Orange County, pretty much any training they want to go to. Lake, pretty much anything in the state of Florida. Manatee, anything in the state of Florida, and they're all getting mileage. Brevard in the state of Florida, computer, cell phone. So that's what other counties are doing. We went around, wrote it all out. There wasn't a set dollar amount for anybody. It was basically anything in the state of Florida was considered acceptable, and you know, I don't think anybody was doing anything unreasonable. I don't think anybody on this board will do anything unreasonable. But to that end, to your point, you know, we may find that it's beneficial for each one of us on an individual trip in the same year to all go to Tallahassee at different times, but not together because of sunshine. To lobby for a change in testing, to lobby for a change with ELL students, to lobby for money for whatever it is. And all of a sudden we find that, oh, we're at our $1,200, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 cap. Do we want to be penny wise and pound foolish and say, okay, well, we're at that cap, we can get $1 million, but we can't go there, or go to Washington. I mean, so you think about it in those terms. I don't think any of us wants to take advantage of a situation. At the same time, we don't want to handcuff ourselves either.
I agree with you, and I'm definitely open for the dialogue on this. I think there's a way that we can improve what we're doing. I'm not convinced that the motion is the right approach for us taking care of that. Let's kind of go through. We've got some lights that are lit up. Superintendent, you had yours on.
Yes, please, thank you. In our conversations during that coalition meeting, something that did come up was the fact, Tim, what you just mentioned, whereas board members would come to the dais and have conversation in regards to trips that they want to attend, and then the board itself would have the discussion and determine whether that particular person should go or not. Maybe they've been there before, so it would give an opportunity to another board member to attend. For me, and I don't get to vote on this, however, I would assume that I think a better compromise would be to continue with the $1,500, and then if there's additional travel beyond that, that would come to the board for conversation. But I will be honest with you, very rarely has any board member in the last two years gone over their $1,500. However, if you want to do something national, out of state, not a problem. Bring it to the board, have a conversation, and then decide.
No, but to your point though, for FSBA alone, the fees, if you go to both meetings, the fees and the lodging will run you over $1,500 now.
We've done the analysis, and I will tell you that no one has gone over their $1,500, Jay.
Okay.
There,
Mr. Soto?
To go ahead and assume reasons for that, Ms. Luciano, is going to be difficult. But the first thing, just quickly, Mr. Washire is, in my opinion, is absolutely correct as to whether, you know, we put a request to the superintendent. I don't even think that's appropriate. But as far as changing the culture, and this goes to your second comment, you know, to enact rules because we have to assume the possibility of some unethical behavior by a board member, I think that we can safely move away from that and really put that as far back in the past as we can. So if we want to go ahead and have a policy, we're all professionals here, and we know from our time constraints that we know what's going to be useful and what's going to be useful for us to do our jobs, because we all have a lot of challenges. We all want to go ahead and push this district to new levels of student achievement, new levels of quality schools, to justify impact fees. There's always new development that comes in and a lot more things to learn. And this is you know, developing personally as an individual makes you a better board member. And to your point, Luciana, it's hard to say that the $1,500 limit is what's working just because it doesn't go over. There's a lot of reasons why probably that hasn't happened. And I will go ahead and I will suggest to this board that we not go ahead and subscribe to that culture, that we as professionals don't know what we need to do, since we have clear goals, we have our missions, we've been elected to represent the people in this county with the education that their students receive. So to that end, we probably can go ahead and figure out something and go through other school districts to find out what they're doing. But let's not handcuff ourselves and our judgment any longer. Thank you.
I think it was well said, Mr. Soto. Board, what is, just kind of looking for head nods from everybody, my opinion of what would be helpful with regard to this conversation, and there is a motion, and I understand that, and maybe we can table it.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, that's great. What I would like to do, Mr. Wheeler, maybe provide the information that you have on what other school boards are doing. You've already started some of the research. Get that to the superintendent's office, distribute it to each board member so everybody has an opportunity to look at it. Let's bring this up at a future meeting if it's the board's desire, and this is where I'm looking for the head nod, and let's have a conversation about how we want to make sure that we all believe in professional development. We talk about it in our strategic plan, and we are no different than anyone else that works in this district, that we need to sharpen our tools as well and make sure that we're understanding how to be the most effective. Let's bring this back for a discussion at a future date once everybody has the same information that you have, had an opportunity to kind of talk through it, look through it, think about it, and then from there we can make a decision, board, of what we want to do. I will say I think ultimately the decision shouldn't rest with this board, though.
I got one question though. Melba, do you have the information? Did you write that down, or you mean to email it to you?
No, email it to me, but I think I still have it in my file.
I thought you were taking notes too.
Yes, I was taking notes. I wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
We were sitting next to each other, Melba. Okay.
So, board, are we good on that? Does
Yeah.
that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Mr. Booth, you're good? Okay. So just so you know as well, the motion, the second has been withdrawn, and so there isn't a motion on the floor at this time, and Mr. Wheeler get the information to the superintendent, which will then be distributed to each board member for review and consideration. Thank you, Mr. Wheeler.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone here knows that I think we all agree that we need to continue to work, go to as many of these things that we can go to, the ones that are beneficial to us, and I would even say that whether we go over 1,500, I mean, I'm not counting miles. If I need to go, I'll go, and we'll make it happen.
I never charge miles,
Yeah, okay, good. So let's talk about this in the future, and we'll put it on an agenda maybe December or beginning of the year.
Sure.
Board member comment, committee report. Board, do you have anything to share on these items? Okay, Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Booth and Mr. Thacker, for your first meeting, Clarence, I don't know what you've been doing. You've been doing your homework. You're up to speed. I appreciate your comments. And Ricky, I'm glad you made it through the meeting. We've been healthy. That's good. I'm thrilled that you're both here. You're going to be great board members. No, don't share water with them, Clarence. And I appreciate your preparation and being up to speed on the issues. And with that said, Clarence, please don't make him spit up water.
Yeah, Mr. Thacker, that's why we were all using hand sanitizer. We remembered that Mr.
You listened to Rick.
Because I was coughing over here?
No,
I listened to you when you said you weren't
kidding.
feeling it, Rick.
Did you have something, Mr. Soto, or did I?
No, just,
Okay.
That's all I have.
I just thought I saw.
Thank you, board, for your vote of, for me to be the vice chair. You know, I cannot say, you know, it is a privilege. It is not something that anyone should think, you know, that they're entitled to. And by you saying that you want me to continue functioning that role, I will say I am humbled and I'm grateful. Thank you very much, and I will do my best.
Thank you, and I share that exact sentiment with regard to enabling me to stay on as the chair this year. Board, I just want to remind you, committee assignments, take a look at those, get information through to us so that we know what you want to serve on, and then also, to me, and Pam. And Pam, if you would send out, I think it would be helpful as well, which board member currently is serving in which position to Mr. Thacker and Mr. Booth, so that they know where people are. There may be an overlap, there may not, and that would be helpful for them.
To Tim's point, I think relative to it, because we have 2 new board members, if the other board members were sitting on those committees, you might just want to put down, you know, District 5, District 4 was there, so that way, if Ricky and Clarence.
Yeah, certainly. I think I had asked for that earlier.
I agree, you guys should have first picks, by the way.
Yeah, and since Ricky lives the furthest, we got to put him on the Four Corners board.
Please do not put me on the Four Corners board.
He's here, by the way.
Yeah, we do.
Is there a Kenansville community board?
We're going to put Jay on that one.
Yeah, right.
So, all right, so what's going to happen then is we're going to recess at this time for our executive session. I want to thank all of you guys for being here this evening and also sitting through to contribute your input to this process. We'll recess for executive session, and then we'll come back down, reconvene, and return as school board. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I didn't get